Actually in this building.
Right.
Hey, you're on.
I would like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is June 6, 2023. We're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. The first item on the agenda is Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, Math presentation by Jesse Hennifer, Assistant Director of Instructional Support. I will turn this over to him.
Thank you. I think my title changes every single time. It's like administrator, assistant director, associate director. But hey, it's good to be with all of you. It looks like we're missing a couple of people. You still want me to start though? Okay, cool. This is an update from our STEAM team, and I wanted to come and meet with you to talk through what we've been doing with STEAM, what we've done with STEAM, what we're hoping to do with STEAM. And I've got the very first slide. I wanted to actually just highlight some of the people who don't normally get highlighted. So these are our specialists in our department and other departments in our district. And these are experts in what they do. These are the supports for our teachers out in the buildings and in their classrooms. And I really just wanted to highlight them. Sometimes they don't get the shout out. They're a little more hidden. They're visible to our teachers, but not often to everybody else. So Leslie Allen is our middle school science specialist. Camille Cole is one of our digital teaching and learning specialists. Mindy Curtis is our art specialist. She is the newest. Sherry's leaving us, but then we also have hired two more. But Mindy is on the STEAM team. Allison Duncan is our high school math specialist. Andrew Jones is our high school science specialist. Patty Larkin, although she doesn't work in my department, she works with us all of the time, and she's CTE specialist. Ashley Lennox is elementary math. Rachel Marshall's middle school math. Chandra Martz and Jonathan Stewart are digital teaching and learning specialists. And Sally Ann Wakely, although she is retiring this year, she has been our elementary math and science specialist for a long time. So I wanted to take a minute and highlight them. If you have not met them or had the opportunity to, I would highly recommend just getting out and talking with these people because they make a lot happen. But that team is our current STEAM team, and it has been created to support STEAM as a whole. Although they work individually for their contents, we've put a highlight on STEAM over the last few years, and I'll get to that in a minute. These are the team goals. So as a team, these are the goals they developed and that they're going to be working on for the next so many years. So using our strategic plan as the anchor, thank you, we've got it down in the bottom. The STEAM team is focused on these three things. Providing all CSD students with opportunities to implement STEAM in their classroom. And to do that, they're going to advance the learning of each individual STEAM discipline as they do as content specialists. But next is the harder part, which is provide logical and authentic connections between and across those individual STEAM disciplines. So that's the part that we're going to be working on now and focusing on. And then finally, creating a culture in which STEAM education serves as bridge to STEAM careers later. The second part of this is to ensure that our district policies, practices, and resources provide access and opportunity and equity for all students to engage in a high-quality STEAM education. And this body is in charge of policies. We totally understand that, but those that I listed would be excellent people to ask questions to or refer things to as policies are being developed. So that's what we'd love to support with. You all can ask questions anytime. So don't let me just keep talking because I will. These are the recent movements in STEAM over just the past couple of years. So I'll talk about recent, and then I'll talk about what we've been doing and have done in the past. So on October 2021, Andrew Jones heard about USBE providing what was called the STEM Institute. And that was USBE pulling together districts from all over the state to collaborate, to discuss STEM, and to help each other build out what STEM is looking like in their districts. So we applied, we were accepted as part of that institute, and we've worked through that over the last couple of years. It's been incredibly beneficial. So our content specialists have met with other content specialists in other districts. We've shared some of what our vision is. Other districts have looked at our vision and kind of picked it apart and given us recommendations on how we could maybe make that adjustment. I'll show you that vision in a moment. So we worked through the STEM Institute. And then in August of 2022, that smaller group, which is part of the Institute, we decided we needed to make that a little bigger to have more representation. So we created the STEAM Institute Committee, which is the group of names that I just showed you. And that included all of the people from our department and CTE. The STEM Institute team actually had teachers from other schools as well. So we had Anthony Levitt, a CTE teacher from a middle school at Mount Jordan. We had Cleef Castleton, if you know Cleef from Hillcrest with robotics. They were part of that to help give that classroom perspective. Then in October of 2022, we came up with a mission and vision, which I'll show you in just a moment. In January, we started our first steps to what we felt needed to happen next. And that was the development of a STEM audit. Like what does STEAM and STEM look like right now in Canyons? What do we have? What don't we have? What are some of the gaps? And then in April of 2023, we sent that audit out to all of our schools to self-evaluate and give feedback on what do you have in your schools? What personnel do you have? What courses, clubs, what equipment? I won't go through all of that today, but on one of the slides, I did provide a link to all of that data that you can look through from that audit. But it was pretty telling. A lot wasn't surprising, some was. And then in just last month, we invited a few of the members to one of our STEAM Institute or STEAM committee meetings. I think Karen and Mont attended. And from that, they're like, come talk to the rest of us. share more. So that's what we've been up to in the last little bit. This slide is showing a few things. It is what we have had in the district and what we currently have in the district. And it's not comprehensive, it's not exhaustive, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what STEAM and STEM programs we've had. All of those that are in the black font, we currently have going right now. Robotics is yellow because we have it, but it looks different than it did when we started. And then those in red, for different reasons, have either fizzled out or are no longer going. And so just giving a little bit of background on some things that we've had so the next thing we wanted to talk about was why have some of those things fizzled, or what are some of the interactions we've had as a district with STEAM and STEM. And I'll just continue calling it just STEAM from now on, if that's okay. But we've had a few interruptions. In 2015, the foundation changed the structure of how the money was distributed. Prior to 2015, a big chunk came to, I assume, my department to provide finances and funding for the robotics that were in our school as a system, and some data collection devices for all of our science teachers. In 2015, that adjusted, so the foundation was then giving individual grants to teachers so you could see the innovations that were popping up around the school. And so it was a good change. It just made some of the systems adjust. And then in 2020, obviously we had some pretty big adjustments and interruptions because of COVID, for one. Because of COVID, before school and after school clubs, activities started to fizzle. Obviously, we're shut down for a while, but never really got that back. That included after school tutoring for math and science, which is part of our STEAM initiatives. But we also lost a pretty big resource from the state called U-Star. And it was U-Star, then they changed the name to MOST, and then the legislation just got rid of that. So that funding source, which was a pretty good source of funds for STEAM as a whole, that disappeared. So that had some impact. However, we have lots of other places that we've turned to for that funding. So I'm going to share in this one our newest grant that we just were awarded. And in the next slide, I'll give you a list of some that we've had for quite some time. And these are funding sources and mechanisms that our specialists that I pointed out earlier have written these grants, and we've received these grants. This newest one is called the Computing Partnership Grant, and it's from the STEM Action Center. And our total that we've received will receive is $214,000. And that's a pretty good chunk of money. It's over 2 years. And you can see the activities that we wrote into the grant for that funding to be used for. So makerspaces is the first part. And makerspaces, if you haven't been to one, a current one in place is at Midvale Middle School's library. And it really is that combination of what we look at STEAM being. It's the collaboration, the problem solving, the students working together, design process, as well as robotics. So you see all of the STEAM pieces come together in those makerspaces. But we are funding those makerspaces in our schools. We're also funding checkout, STEM night checkout devices. So all of our schools, all of our elementary schools can check out these kits that they can then have and hold STEM nights at their schools. So parents can come, younger siblings can come, the students, older siblings of those elementary students can come. A great example of this was Sean Thorpe. Oh my gosh, I just forgot. Oakdale? Ocala, thank you. Thank you very much. They had a fantastic STEM night this year. So this grant, that's what this grant is going to fund and hopefully push our STEAM initiatives forward. And this is a list of some of our other grants that we've written and currently have. Leon can talk way more about these, but I helped with a few of them, mostly in the writing of the grant. But the Digital Teaching and Learning Grant is a very large grant that we get from the state. The PCBL, a Personalized Competency-Based Learning Grant. Our Professional Learning Grant, which allows us to pay teachers for additional professional learning. The Math Personalized Learning Platforms is a grant that we get, and they give licenses to each of our schools. The Math Innovation Grant, and then the STEM Competition Grant. So although some funding mechanisms adjusted in the past, we've tried to find additional ways to fund these STEAM initiatives in our schools. Oz, any questions?
I have
Yeah, please.
the slide before this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Can't see the clicker. This one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so under activities, explain 23 to 34, 24 to 25 with the 5 and all.
So these are the years that will get funded. So next year, 23. Oh, that's
And it says 30.
so funny. Should say 23, 24, 24, 25. Those are the funding years that we'll get. And those are the schools that we'll be able to provide the resources for. So the makerspaces next year, we'll be able to provide for 5 of the elementaries. And by the following year, hopefully all of the elementaries will have that equipment. So
Thanks. I looked at it and I thought that's what it meant. And then I looked at it again and I thought maybe they're talking about actual activities. There's
the 34 would definitely throw you off. I totally understand that.
So that's great. So every middle school makerspace, even in the 2023-24 school year, we'll have it everywhere but elementary, pretty much, of all these things.
Correct, because we're starting with that 8, 7, 6 grades, and then we're going to move back to the elementaries so that we can provide it that way.
And will they mainly just be in the libraries?
It'll be in different spaces in the school, and that's gonna be up to the school. The library has made a lot of sense for middle schools, especially Midvale Middle School. She's provided a really good template for what that can look like for a shared space within the school. But there are other schools that have spaces that they prefer it being in. There are some classrooms that they want to dedicate to it. So I don't know the details on it yet, but I do know that it won't just be in the library.
Okay, and as far as accessibility for kids, like if it's the library, then I assume that all the kids would be able to have a chance to use that maker space during like their library rotation. Middle school, I'm not as familiar how often, if it's going to be at the library, how often they are rotated through the library.
So in the middle school, it's before and after school where she's provided those times, as well as during the lunch period. So students can get their ticket to go to the library, just pass to go there so that they can access it. So she's tried to do that at Midvale Middle School so that even within the school day, students have that ability to go in and work through and work with that equipment.
So would it also be a possibility that a teacher could have her class rotate, just go and integrate that into the curriculum?
That would be like the ultimate goal.
That'd be amazing.
What part of that unit would that makerspace then fit into so that we can bring that whole unit together?
It'd be great for ISD to promote that, because as a kid, I would probably have a hard time giving up my lunch or my before or after school. But if it's part of my class, then all of a sudden, as a district, we've reached every child.
Correct. Yep, you're right on. So those are hopefully plans, and I can talk through some future plans. But one of the ideas that we have as the STEAM team, you're all familiar with our instructional guides, or what were instructional maps, which is the scope and sequence. We love to be able to map in where that totally makes sense, both at elementary and middle. And maps, it's not required, but it would be like, this is the ideal place for, say, this integration. And that's coming. That's one of the plans. So
Awesome. And when do you think that will be included in the maps?
Can I finish it? I love that. Yes, between 2023 and 2034.
That's funny.
So hopefully we'd like to have, and I'll get to that, but I'll get to it. We'd love to come back in the fall and bring a 3 to 5 year plan with more of those details for you all to look through, give feedback on, so that we can move forward. Since we are tying to the strategic plan, the biggest part is we wanted you as stakeholders to be in on that. We want teachers in on that. We want to reach out to students. So we have a lot of plans, but some of those things have to come before we can get back. So, but I would say within the next 3 years, that would be an ideal goal for us. 5 years out, we've got some other things that we've brainstormed, but they're no further than brainstorms.
I think we can't do that soon enough. That this engaged classroom experience, it's right along with our strategic plan. Personalized learning. I love your slide later on that talks about diverse pathways for every student. That's right, right in line with our, and when we look at the competitive market that we have with charter schools and private schools, this is something that will absolutely make a huge difference in the public school experience. If we can provide that for these kids, and we would probably be the first district to do that within a curriculum map. I just think that's really.
I think that's a great point. And I mentioned it here, that second sub bullet of providing logical and authentic connections. That can be hard when a teacher is planning day to day in the middle school, their content. They're focused on science and what their next lesson is. But if we can provide that, it makes it easier. At the elementary, they're planning day to day with math and social studies and science somewhere and their ELA. So being able to provide that and start the connections between the resources we have, the wonders that we just adopted, our brain boosters that we currently already have, making those ties so it's easier for teachers to do that. We find that's going to be the most important, because if not, trying to have something authentic and logical connect sometimes they're pretty weak. And I can attest to that as a science teacher in middle school,
Right.
trying to reach out to social studies and go, let's do this thing. And it was a stretch, but to help teachers, I think would be the plan.
Yeah, and it seems like it would make sense too to have the middle and high school be the first priority with the curriculum maps, because elementary, they do have brain booster rotations. So we know that all the students are going to get access to that within a regular rotation. Whereas middle and high, I think that's where we'd struggle to reach kids.
Superintendent, did you?
Yeah, no, just a couple things. One,
We're here.
just to point out too, I loved how you the premise, looking at foundational attributes like collaboration. I mean, these are habits of mind that build success, right, with students. And so collaboration, creativity, perseverance, working together, all of those things. I think one thing that would be interesting and important is to point out how our relationship with Beverly Taylor Sorensen and the arts integration fit into that. Yes. Because I brought up to Jesse, one of the things that I saw at the DTL conferences, just a need to provide the same, when you're talking about teachers being able to really understand how to integrate STEAM, it takes that level, of training to really connect the dots, right? Like, how does this relate into my content and curriculum? But once that occurs, then it's really a yes and proposition, and it just, it goes from there. So I don't know exactly how that relates to what we provide in all of our elementaries, but to me that all runs together. It's not. So if you want, okay, elaborate, please.
So we, as we adjusted our FTE, having to lose some, we looked at what we needed to readjust for. And I think you all know, for the longest time we had a art specialist, Sherry. She did it. She tried to do it all. We will now have 2 art specialists, technically 3, because we'll also have the BTS specialist, which we were awarded as well. So Mindy, she's actually right now at the Arts Express conference, which this conference is.
We offered that to all of our teachers that wanted to go.
We did, yep. We sent it out. We offered it to all. We actually had some take us up on it. And the focus was STEM and arts integration. Like, that's what that conference is this year. And we're excited for her to come back, and she was excited to go. So between her and our new specialist Bradley and our new specialist JP, that team, I think, is a huge part of helping our elementary through BTS, but in all of our schools, because as a BTS specialist, she does work with the teachers, but she is our art specialist for elementary. And then as a team, they can finally collaborate and have that bandwidth to support these integrations that we didn't have before. Sherry did everything she could. And
I think one thing that's emerged in our high quality learning committee is that I think we're moving to a place where I think we're rock solid with great curriculum, and our maps are amazing, and those foundational elements for learning are there, whether it's literacy or math, but really integrating the arts and STEAM all together in a way that gives teachers permission to really explore that. That's, I think, more and more, that's kind of the culture that I don't want to speak for the board, but that's what I mean, that's kind of where I see that going. And so I think that kind of is on all of us to create that culture in that environment.
Yeah, and I really think ultimately that's why we chose STEAM in our strategic plan rather than STEM, right? Was it is that integration, and we have awesome examples locally of what STEAM can be. I mean, Hale Theater, you think of the phenomenal actors and actresses and the fantastic music, but then you've got the lighting engineers, the sound engineers, the set designers and set engineers, like that is STEAM in our own boundaries, right?
To me, I think it really paints the true picture of what an engaged, classroom can be. And I think operating from those attributes from the start opens it up to all of those aspects. So anyway.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. I only have a few more and I feel like I'm going a little long. There's other people I know who want to get on and present. But some of the work that we've done with the STEM Institute and that we would like to anchor some of our next steps in are really on the STEM culture rubric, because that's what we need to build, is a STEAM culture rubric in Canyon School District. And we really liked the way this outlined anchors for us to aim for. So clearly articulating a vision statement is the very first one. We didn't even have one. And I'll present ours here in just a moment. But what does that look like to not only have one, but to have teachers and staff and administrators know what that is and own it? The next is clear and measurable goals. We can talk about STEAM and our initiatives, but really, what are the goals we want our students to have and what outcomes do we want? Coherence with our strategic plan. Thank you for a strategic plan. We actually have one to tie to. We didn't have one before. And then identifying the strengths and challenges of our current culture, which our first step was that audit. You know, like, what do we have? What are we missing? What are we thinking about? And then finally, those common measurements. If we have a plan and we have actions, we need to have something to measure our success on. So we're going to tie to this. And I mean, even if you just personally went through, you could probably place where you think Canyon Schools District is on this. And there are very few that were past a 3, I think, at this point, but that's okay. We're starting this, we're refocusing on it. So we're going to take this and we're going to work through. But one of the first things we did was the mission and vision, and we tied this to our strategic plan. And this is the proposed mission and vision that we'd like to adopt for STEAM and the work that we're doing in Canyons. And that's to provide equitable access to engaging, challenging, and diverse pathways in STEAM for all students in all levels, because it does look different elementary, middle, and high. And then the vision is to develop STEAM literate students. To do that, we actually have to define what we want STEAM to be, who communicate, think critically while problem solving as they create, innovate, and collaborate with others. So that's language that we pulled from the strategic plan. So we'd love feedback on it. Doesn't have to be here, but you are all welcome. This is what we'd like to move forward with. I don't know.
Are you okay if we
vote, or
what if we take that to high quality learning and then bring it, just get it, like, refine it?
Awesome.
You okay with that? And you come?
Yeah, as long as you don't touch any of the words.
No guarantees of that, but
No, yes, we would love that. We wanted to start with something, and we do need it to move forward. So STEM audit, like I said, I won't cover all of this, but if you click on that link, all of the information from that audit is available. We had just a little bit about the survey. There were only 8 items. A lot of them were open, went to elementaries and secondaries. You can see who we sent it to kind of get that input. And it was really to determine what STEM opportunities are currently and continuing to occur. So that's the purpose of that audit. We want to use that data to move forward. And here are some of our general next steps. Define and communicate STEAM principles for Canyon School District. Use our audit data to create actionable goals by level that align to the strategic plan, and integrate appropriate frameworks and initiatives, because we have a lot going on. You've all got committees that you're on. There's a lot of pieces, but we want to connect with all of that. Most importantly, I think, is define student outcomes in STEAM. What is that we want to communicate to our students? Then design a timeline and action plan to meet those goals and student outcomes. We want to evaluate resources needed. And then, just like we were talking about, love to come back in the fall and present like a 3 to 5 year plan and see if that's where we want to go as a district, as a board, as leadership. And then finally, which is super important for the whole thing, is communicate that to all of our stakeholders. Because if our students don't know what STEAM is, parents don't know what STEAM is, and we're the only ones that do, it doesn't do us any good. So those are our next steps.
Hey, I think we have some questions for you. We'll start with Amanda and then Nancy.
So see if I can answer them.
So I'm excited that you guys are getting started on this. I think there's so much benefit to it. And the only reason I didn't attend that meeting was there were enough of us that had interest. I didn't want to have a whole quorum there.
Yes.
You have to be careful. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great start. I think there's some things that we could definitely do or adjust or tweak. One of the things I looked through all of the information on the audit, and it kind of brings up, I was at the STEAM conference today, sat next to me at lunch.
Awesome.
It reminded me all over again, there is often a misperception that STEM and STEAM are the same thing. And they aren't. They really are separate and distinct, but the audit itself seemed to really address STEM specifically. And it was really kind of administrator driven. I would be really interested in seeing feedback with more of a STEAM orientation, not just from administrators, but also from teachers and even students.
Okay.
Because I think, you know, one of the quotes I heard today is, without engineers, scientists are only philosophers, right? And the truth is, you have to have design and the whole engineering process as part of the whole experience in order for any science or math to become meaningful. And that's where STEAM, real true STEAM, is a strength. And I feel like while this audit provides some good information, I feel like it's incomplete in terms of us really understanding where we are with STEAM specifically.
Can I just give you one? We did discuss that. One of the reasons we left out arts in that was because there was an arts survey, pretty robust one last year. And you're right, it still leaves a lot of gaps and we still have a lot of questions, but that was one of the reasons we had some data for art specifically, but that's a very good point.
Well, and those are arts kind of standalone programs, right?
Yes.
And then you have STEM. The hope is that there's a connection that comes between the two. I mean, like Carnegie Mellon, for instance, is a really interesting university. They have a building that has an entire wing of the science section, entire wing of the arts section, and then they have a makerspace that comes in the middle, and it's true STEAM. And I think that cross section is really where we want to go. That's where the innovation is going to be. Like, for instance, I would be interested in getting feedback from the principals about some of the arts integration lessons that have been worked on for the Wonders curriculum.
Correct.
If they feel like those are helpful, if do the teachers feel like they have the time or ability to use those? So, and my other question, it leads to this next point, is when all is said and done, what does this look like at the classroom level? Similar to what Holly was asking. Is it up to the individual teacher to engage? Is that only through endorsements, or does this have overarching impact so that all students have access to highly integrated STEAM lessons? And this is an even bigger question, will they have the time and ability to really access it? I mean, that's the feedback I hear from teachers a lot, and quite a few of them will talk to me and say, I'm very interested in doing project-based learning. I'm interested in doing some of these, but I don't feel like I have the time. And I feel like I'm so regimented in what I've been handed and I am required to teach that I don't have time to innovate. I don't have the ability to do that. I have the interest and I would like some additional training, but their hands are kind of tied right now.
You're right. We currently see that with the science portion in elementary, right? Like even just being able to have that within that master schedule, there's the time element, but then there's the comfortability or the confidence of many of those teachers in teaching something that, although they're interested in it, they didn't really focus on that in their elementary education. And so there would be that additional professional learning that would be needed to make them comfortable and confident to do that. So I agree.
Well, and we've talked about like how the BTS teachers are a real resource that way, right? That if schools utilize them and in some cases even pay for additional hours for them to push out into the classrooms, they can start effectively teaching their teachers how to do that. But it seems like from an organizational standpoint, there need to be some adjustments that allow more breathing room for that. And so I know that's ISD's area. So anyway, that's just a bit of feedback.
I understand, I agree.
And I love that you involved Cliff and I can't remember the
Anthony.
Anthony. do we have any representation from the elementary level on that committee?
In the original STEM Institute, no, it was very small. And then on the team that we currently have, it's specialists. So the representation will be them reaching out to their teachers so that we can get that feedback. We don't have a standing teacher, mainly because of the time it takes on committees, as you know, but.
I would love to get feedback more directly or consistently and informed from those who are in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that they're at the receiving end of what's required.
Yes.
What's feasible. I think it's, and at every level, elementary on up. So, and my other question was about endorsements that are mentioned in the presentation. So are those coming from outside or inside of the district? Do they already exist? Like.
So we have endorsements through USBE, and most of those have moved to competency based. The ones that we listed here were offered through our district as a support to our teachers to attain that endorsement from USBE. Some of them, like the math endorsement for elementary, there was a point where we had so many teachers take that endorsement and get their endorsement that we then had a lull where we didn't have enough to actually hold classes. And so those are some of the things that have phased out. But
so they're pre-existing
yes.
Options. Okay.
State options that we usually provide for our teachers to meet their needs, specifically to tie to Canyon's district initiatives. And so we can do that when we're teaching that endorsement class, but they always have the option to go through an endorsement pathway at USBE.
And then another question, I noticed subjects like computer science and others that are currently under the CTE program are listed. How is that going to work under some of what's being discussed? I mean, does it suddenly fall under ISD? Does it stay within CTE?
No, that's part of
collaboration between.
Yeah, and that's why Patty Larkin is part of that team. CTE, once you move up to middle and then definitely high school, those are the courses that you start to see more of that integration within. So we work closely with Janet Goebel, the director, and Patty Larkin as the specialist. I also work with all of our concurrent enrollment coordinators at each of the high schools. As I'm the liaison between our universities and Canyons for concurrent enrollment. So we have a really good collaboration there. And the pathways that CTE has in the high schools, they're set. They're really good pathways for students to choose for STEAM or STEM careers. And so once they start getting in those, it's a collaboration, but a lot of that can lean on CTE department.
So just one more point, and to kind of what Holly was saying, I agree that we need to put the gas pedal on this, and I don't think we're the first district to really address it. In fact, I think we're already getting left behind. And I'll give an example of that. Skyridge High School for several years has had a makerspace available for their students. They have a time where the students have the ability to go in and talk to their teachers. If they are, at a certain GPA level or above with their grades or whatever, they can take that time and go to the makerspace and work on individual project-based learning that has application to other classes. They've been doing that for a while. And I feel like this is something that we've known has existed in the educational space and innovation for a long time. I would like to see it move more quickly rather than not. And I think part of what needs to happen is for us to clear some space and bandwidth for teachers to be able to do that. And like she said, to have things written into curriculum maps. We need to start encouraging these kids to do it quickly, and especially in preparation for whatever is going to happen at the point. So anyway, that's just my thought.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate
before 2034.
Yes, before.
Okay, we can do 2034. We can make it way faster than that.
And Nancy.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. This is all really exciting information, and I agree with Superintendent that really the work that your committee's doing should then come through the high quality learning committee to kind of vet it out and establish maybe some timelines and things like that, but. So I have a few questions for you that I don't expect you to answer. That you can take back
On the
to the
record
committee
question.
and maybe they can talk about it. So,
Does someone record these?
well, so I'm interested in, you know, to do it right and to do it in a timely manner takes funding and resources, right?
Yes.
So that's where I kind of have a few questions about now. You'd mentioned that at the start of the district, the foundation had a real big push to raise money from the community to start implementing STEM things. And then, but then that support shifted to the classroom grants.
Yes, that's what we understand and we gathered.
So one of my questions is, and I just think it'd be good to kind of help create a big picture really of the district, is how much money has the foundation contributed? Even though it's classrooms or teams up, but that would fall under the support of STEM or STEAM type activities. I think that would be helpful and good information. And then looking at all these grants that you've put together, or that, you know, from the state, are they all public funds? And if they are, I mean, to me, I'm looking at that and essentially, I know they're each specific, but essentially they're going towards the same big goal.
Yes, student outcomes.
And what I see there is a lot of time spent writing a grant, reporting on the grant, making the plan, you know, and probably a lot of it is duplication of effort in a way. And so I guess I just, maybe, you know, you guys could talk about if there would be a way to articulate or to quantify how much time and energy is being spent total, right? When you divide it up in all these different grants, so that, you know, that might be something we could report to the legislature and just say, look, you know, can we maybe just block this together?
I personally would be very thankful for that because I do spend a lot of time on many of those grants as do others.
There's 6 of, I've, in my past, I've written a grant or 2. It takes a lot of time for just, you know, a chunk of money that, yes, it's funds that you need, but I just think that maybe there might be a way, and again, your committee can talk about it to be more efficient and more flexible with the use of those resources. So anyway, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Amanda has a follow-up.
Holly had a follow.
Oh, Holly, sorry.
Just a couple of thoughts. Because this is in the strategic plan, it's written right in, at one point you said, and then we'll present it to you to see if this is the direction you want, you know, to be headed. Yes, it is the direction. It's in the strategic plan. That's been
I
nice.
assumed, which is why I thought I was here, but yes, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, I think all of us here, you know, getting it in those curriculum maps sooner than saying a 3-year plan, like a 3-year plan, that's a little like takes the wind out of our sails. Like, you know, this is something we want sooner than that. And that's why, and obviously there needs to be thoughtful preparation to do it well, but you know, as we determine what our focuses are, and clearly this is written in the high quality learning and impact statements, there's like 6 of them that this applies to. So clearly this would then be established as one of those focal points, I believe. So the other thing is when we're talking about funding, something we really need to access, and it goes to our school community council training that Susan does, is we need our school community councils to recognize this is a priority for our district. And so when you're looking at that money, every school gets a couple $100,000. We can buy science kits. We can do these things. You know, I still in the land trust and TSSP plans this last year, there's still a lot going towards technology and these other things, and we have budgets for those. And you know, and it's not technology like for STEAM, like robotics, it's just the basics. Okay. And so that needs to be, I think, a vehicle we use for funding as well. There shouldn't be any reason that it's not part of every plan moving forward, somewhere in there. And then the other thing is when we talk about, I know there's other schools and other districts that have these maker spaces and things like that. I do believe that if we get this written into our curriculum map and it's actually part of a classroom experience that every child has access to, I don't know of anyone that's doing that yet, where it's in the classroom like that. So that for us to have that innovative quality about what we're doing in Canyons, I see that as a magnet and a draw for open enrollment for kids to come to us. And if we tell the story, we've got an amazing communications department and people know, hey, guess what? In 7th grade, every single science class, well, 7th's physical science, I don't know, but whatever grade, they're doing robotics. They're doing these things.
Robotics mapped into 6, 7, and 8.
Right. And we have these little programs where we're programming spheros and stuff like that, but it's not in your regular core subject. It's in your college and career awareness class, which kids can opt out of. But if we just take some of those things and put them into our core classes, that every child gets to experience that. That was awesome when I went and saw these kids programming these spheros and trying to get them in the golf, anyway. And then the other thing is when we do the audit, when we're talking about doing another audit, I don't know, but to me, I think to save time, possibly we have these teachers that are killing it with the BTSS, Vandergraff at Willow Springs. We've got Cassie, is it? Cassie Walker. We ought to first go to them and say, and to those schools and those teachers that have done it. Right. I saw some amazing things that happened at Willow Springs at their art night with, their science unit and what they were doing with their insects and all of this. So I think if we, instead of maybe a general survey of what are you doing or maybe let's first just go talk to where it's working and then try to spread that out to the other areas because we know where it is working currently.
We do.
And it's just on the element.
Right, that's just elementary, but if we do that for the elementary and then focus on curriculum maps for
specialists, have been in every classroom, every teacher, so.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is a huge,
Okay,
thank you.
This is Tingy. Thank you.
One other really quick thing, and this is all really exciting, but I think it sounds to me like it's a lot of good work for the committee, your committee, quality learning, and that any proposals you do put together through that process should be brought to the full board. Because I think this is something that it probably is going to be a district-wide implementation. And so, yes, it's a priority because it's in our strategic plan, but I think it still needs to come. Any proposals need to come.
So I'll connect at one point to see what that workflow is, like when it comes to the high quality committee versus or before or after. I'll work with somebody on that to see how the best flow for that is. So, yeah.
Okay, this is Oaks.
Quick.
Everyone keeps having one more.
It's because this is the most exciting thing we've talked about.
That's very exciting. We're very excited.
Follow up to Nancy's questions about the grant writing. I know we have other departments who write grants. Some of them are, include the federal grants, and that's kind of its own animal. But I actually would be interested in knowing more of how many man hours are being spent with grants. I mean, when I first got on the board, one of the things I suggested, and it didn't get legs, but I've thought about it many times since, is having a grant writer on staff. Because in the end, like in charter schools, it's a very well-known thing that they earn their bread and butter and then some many times over if they're good at it. And I feel like that might be a good use of resources and help us capitalize to bring in more supporting monies for the things that we're hoping to do. So I don't know if you guys have.
Or just, and it's public to everyone, the Digital Teaching and Learning Grant. If you go onto USBE's website, you can find DTL and you can look at Canyons grant. You can see the entire thing. Then you can see the process that we have to go through every year to tell our story, report our data, and then collect stakeholder feedback, because we send that out to all of our teachers and administrators. That'll give you just an idea of what those in our district who are writing grants probably have to go through after the grant is written. And that's just one example. You mentioned special education. Every one of our departments, special ed, student services, federal and state programs, they all write grants, and there's all of that energy that goes into that for each one of those.
Okay, we are gonna move those other two items into business. I know those items are really important, and I know they will also go long.
Sorry.
So they're important and we're gonna just put those at the beginning probably of new business. So then also I just want to recognize that Cleve Castleton came in.
Hey,
He's been, I know, really involved with this committee, so.
I gave you a shout out a couple of times.
Yeah, so we just appreciate you being here. We appreciate your work, so. We're out of time now, so, okay, we'll dismiss now and start
you,
business
everybody.
in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you
Jeffy.
so much.
Thank you.
This is really fun and exciting. I'm still like, I was gonna call you, but I started.
I don't want them to go rogue. Because they kind of been running it. Started before the strategic plan was completely in place and they've adapted to it. But yeah, we got.
Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is June 6, 2023. We're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. We are going to excuse tonight Mont Millerberg and Andrew Edel. They are not able to join us, but we still have a quorum here and we'll continue with our business. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight, June 6th. So if I can have a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda with a couple adjustments from what is in the printed documents. With the agenda, that would include moving item B from study session, Canyons Transitional Academy update and possible move, down to item A in new business, and moving item C from study session, hazardous bus routes follow-up, down to item B of new business. And then we will move the current item A and B to item C and D respectively under new business.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve that adjusted agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Mrs. Oaks made the motion and it is seconded by Mrs. Nybar. So all in favor of that motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So we will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Danny Davis, Director of Accounting. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we are now going to go on to the patron comments section of our meeting. And I will now read a statement about patron comment. The board often designates time in meetings to listen to the patrons of the district. Patron comment time is limited to residents and taxpayers of Canyons District, students and parents of students, and current employees of the district. Patrons may provide board members with written documents. These documents may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting or emailed to the Office of Public Communications by noon of the day following the board meeting. Tonight, individuals will be given 3 minutes. Those representing groups will be given 5 minutes. Comments made during patron comment are part of the public record. It is the board's practice to listen and take notes during patron comments. The Board of Education does not discuss matters that are not on the meeting's agenda, nor engage in public comment on individual students to protect their privacy or employee issues. If a patron wants to comment on a district's employees' character, professional competence, or mental or physical health, the board requests that those comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if a patron determines to verbally comment on those personnel issues, the comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, defamatory, or slanderous comments about an individual. The Board of Education would like to make clear that critical race theory is not part of the curriculum being used by Canyons School District. There are no plans to incorporate it into the curriculum or instruction in Canyon schools. The Board of Education values input on all sides of issues. To maintain decorum and respect, we ask that those in attendance refrain from applause or other types of demonstrations during the patron comment time, as well as throughout the meeting. Comments must be age appropriate, considering children who may be present or viewing online. Okay, we have 2 people that have signed up today. The first one is Aaron Pond, and then he'll be followed by Spencer Mears. And if you can just come up to the podium right there.
Hi, my name is Aaron Pond. I am the director of the Salt Lake Valley Institute program, which is sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Salt Lake Valley Institute program specializes in providing support for adaptive needs students. And I'm here speaking to support the Canyons Transition Academy move. And as part of support for that, we've actually already received a preliminary authorization to have a dedicated classroom just for Canyons Transition Academy students in the Jordan Seminary building. That will allow them to be able to have the same institute experiences that any neurotypical college student would be able to have, and will also be able to increase the capacity of the Canyons Transition Academy in their proposed move. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Now Spencer Mears.
I'm Spencer Mears. I'm representing a mother who wants to stay anonymous because of what happened to her kid while attending schools in Canyons. She says, "We have had a few experiences with bullying, once in elementary and once in middle school. The biggest problem with the one in elementary was that when my son reported that there was bullying going on and that he didn't think that students should be allowed to play soccer because he was purposely hurting people. My son's teacher got mad at him and told him, 'We don't leave people out.' The very next recess, that kid ended up punching a student multiple times in the face while he was on the playground and purposely swiping my son's feet out from under him on the blacktop, resulting in his first concussion. I went in and talked to both the teacher and the principal about that and told them that my son read the situation perfectly and did what he was taught to do and got in trouble for it. Teachers need to be held responsible and listen to students when they tell them about issues at school, because when they don't, those issues get worse and kids get hurt." Now, on a personal note, while my son's abuse was supposedly being investigated, one of your HR staff told me to my face about how he didn't think one of your employees was mentally capable of understanding things he had done to someone on school property. The same HR person was also caught in 2 accounts of forgery during this process. I wish Canyons would do better at having employees that actually cared about people and did their jobs right.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. And I will ask for a motion. And if whoever gives that motion can read the items individually, that would be great.
I will make that motion. Is this on? I'm not sure. Okay. All right. I move that we approve the consent agenda items. 5B, approval of hire and termination reports. 5C, approval of purchasing bids. 5D, approval of student overnight travel. And 5E, approval of MOUs with Canyons Education Association and Canyons Education Support Professionals Association. I would like to pull item 5A, approval of minutes from May 23rd, 2023 board meeting for further discussion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, but not including item A. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, Mrs. Tingy?
Thank you so much. I was reviewing the pending approval minutes and noticed a couple of things that I felt should be corrected before the board takes action on the minutes. They're not significant, but I felt like it was important enough. So in the document, it in the section about the Latinos in Action group, it mentions that they performed 47 hours of service, and I think that's just a typo, but it really was reported as 475 hours. So we want to make sure that they get all the credit that they deserve for that. And then in the section of the report from the Human Centered Supports Committee, where it was talking about the plans for some training and workshops in the fall. We had some discussion about that the athletic coaches and advisors are going to have a separate training from students and other student athletes and other student leaders in the school. And the statement as it reads in the pending approval minutes puts them all together in the same training. And so I just wanted to clarify that. And so I suggest that we put some, change the wording. So keep it all the same. And then where it says, starts the sentence, athletic coaches, advisors, and student athletes, student government leaders, leaders in extracurricular and student influencers will participate in various training and leadership workshops next school year. And then everything else will be the same. I just felt like that maybe more clarified, more accurately represented what was discussed and what I understand the plans to be.
Okay, thank you. So is that, are you going to make a motion for that?
Do you want me to
Well,
comment to the motion?
Yeah, superintendent, or should we make a motion first and then have discussion?
There you go.
Okay, so I move that we approve the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 board meeting with the modifications that I just explained.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now we can have discussion. Superintendent?
So just quickly to Nancy's comment, there are 4 training scheduled for student athletes with Sunlight Works. One is scheduled with Coaching Alliance in August, and then we will plan multiple trainings through the year. The issue was just trying to coordinate the number of coaches that are not teachers and trying to get everybody's calendars aligned, but there will be. So I think that's a good point to kind of separate that out. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Mrs. Nybar.
As we're talking about this, I just thought of this. So with what we're doing with the training, our sports directors at the individual schools will also be part of that first alignment. And then is that something that's generally overseen by our director of high schools?
Yeah, that's the plan right now.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We'll now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And Mrs. Tingy, will you please send that wording to the board secretary?
Yes, I will.
Cindy and Terry, both, so we can get that corrected. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to new business. And the first item is going to be Canyons Transition Academy. Update and possible move. Nate Edwilson, Director of Special Ed.
Thanks so much, President Schill and the board for giving us the opportunity to talk today about Kansas and Transition Academy. We just going to give some context. I've got Linda Hall, who is our wonderful program administrator over secondary and transition, and also acting as the administrator for CTA to help give us a little more detail. But I wanted to give some context as to, I think, the development of this wonderful opportunity that we're hoping will be considered and approved. At the inception of our district, we had quite a few students that were first doing their post-secondary experience at Jordan Valley, which was great, but based on constituent feedback and other stakeholder feedback, the directors prior chose to work with the board and with the administrative team and move a large group of students out to kind of expand our continuum of services and opportunities for students here for the district office, which has been a really wonderful experience and a great opportunity for our students to grow and experience new new services such as better travel training and these kinds of wonderful opportunities, get more involved in community and employment. Recently, when I first started, I was actually in the same role that Linda is currently, and we were growing in numbers when COVID happened. We went down enrollment for a couple of years, but we are back now. We had 11 graduates this season, but we have 20 incoming students, so we will continue. I hope to grow and grow, which will make this facility a little bit undersized for what our capacity we hope to be, plus some additional needs that we're hoping to achieve. We've also shifted our focus quite a bit according also to constituent feedback and also just goals and objectives for our students to a more niche employment opportunity. We want to see more of our students employed out of our experiences from CTA. So with all that in mind, we're hoping that we will be able to make a proposal that will help our students make progress in that regard and be able to broaden again our continuum of services to include another variety of students that we don't yet serve as well. We're currently serving at Entrada, but we'd like to be able to serve in a variety of capacities. So I'll turn the time over to Linda to describe that, and I'll just be here for any questions that I can.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it, and relocating to Jordan High. And the reason this is so important to our students and our families that we serve at CTA. Click for me. Thank you. So the benefits of moving to Jordan High School location is that teachers will have their own classroom and to teach, and it will cut down the noise and distractions. Students will have access to the lunchroom. We've been getting a lot of feedback from our parents and guardians of our students that having access to a lunchroom would be very important for our students, because right now they have to bring lunch in or they have to buy out into the community. This is causing some hardships in some of our families to be able to purchase meals every day. The next things with students would have access to CTA from Jordan High School location. Like Nate has stated, that's a very important part of our program is travel training within the community. And our students would need to have that access to UTA. And to be able to continue doing that travel training, being able to move to different locations for job coaching and to know how to navigate the community. Our hope is when they leave us in 4 years, they're as independent as possible and be able to move within the community using UTA. Another thing is there would be an administration on site in case of emergency. Bruce has been, Dr. Eschler over there and his team would be there in case there was an emergency and that I needed to get there right away. That would be another benefit of being there. Community members are in favor of moving out of the basement into the district, out of the district office. That's been something that parents have been pushing back, and guardians is, when are we going to get out of the basement? When are we going to actually have our own space? And that's been kind of what we've gotten back from our stakeholders, is some of our families don't want to send their 18 to 22-year-olds because of the location we're in. And they come, and I just had new student orientation a few weeks ago, and one of the students said to me, "It's like coming to preschool. I went to preschool in the basement." And that really stuck to me when he said that, because we don't want them to feel that way. We want it to be a very welcoming environment and having the space where they can learn. And that goes to more space to grow the program. So currently, this is our classrooms. As you can see in the pictures, it's just one big open space if you have never been down there. We run a lot of different classrooms and instruction all at the same time. So we might have 4 or 5 different lessons going on all in this area. And our students really have a hard time staying focused. Behaviors can increase. They don't have space to move around when we have all students there. Right now, we were looking at 60 students next year. So that's a lot of students in this big open space. The only really classroom we have is this office to the left. We do run some centers in there, and we hold our IEP meetings. We hold our PLCs there. But the majority of time we're in these big open spaces. So at our current location for CTA to access UTA, it's about a 7-minute walk. Moving to the new location at Jordan High School, it's only going to put a minute onto our walk. So UTA access will still be available for our students to be able to get on UTA and go to their job sites or to other sites in the community. So I did do a parent survey and we did get 11 responses. This was back in December when we started talking about moving out of the basement. With 11 responses, 100% of people were for us moving out of the basement. Do you support CTA moving this year? This was last year around December. 72% was for it and 27% was against it. The parent survey, this was some of the responses that we got. Distance from home to increase time on the bus to and from school. That's why Jordan High School would be a great location. They were very worried, but we would get put it within the district and they were worried about the location and students to and from school, the distance. They love the idea of fully support getting the kids out of the basement. It's a long drive for us. We shouldn't, if we need to pick up our students earlier, again, they were very concerned about where the location would be if we moved out of the basement. It'll improve learning for students, or is it better for employees? I think it's both, if you ask my opinion. It'll give my teachers their own classrooms, be able to teach their students without a lot of distractions. Also, it's going to improve learning for our students. I feel the move would be confused for students and make it difficult to transition. This is if we were moving last year in the middle of the year. Some of our parents felt like moving mid-year could be difficult for students to transition. And as you can see, it's about time. The current location is horrible, dated, and sad. I feel like I'm sending my child to a dungeon every day. So looking at the Jordan map, where would we be located? If you can look at the PowerPoint here, we would be in a cluster in Jordan High School. So it'd be more of a school within a school concept. We've asked if we could get 2 of our own restrooms, ADA accessible, that would be in there. What's nice is that big commons room. All the classrooms have doors into this big common area where a kitchen could be put in place there. The restrooms, we could have some office areas. And then also we could be able to use that as a common area for some activities for our students too. So this would also give us access right outside. They would walk down the hallway, be able to go right out and head to Institute or into to leave for UTA, or if they're picked up by yellow buses. So this would be a perfect location for us. It's more isolated away from other students, and it would give us the opportunity to expand and grow, as Nate has said earlier, that our program is growing and we're hoping to increase that. We're also hoping to work towards graduation rates, to maybe hold some things in the night program to help bring students back, give them some opportunities to get their credits and be able to graduate. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to speak to that a little bit, we currently have about a 73% graduation rate amongst our students with disabilities. We'd love to be able to significantly increase that to mirror our general education populations. And so this would give us an opportunity to do some remedial work on credits. Also create a bridge between high school to post-high, so we can work on articulating a well-articulated plan for our students to be successful and even kind of work through employment opportunities and some things like that while they're finishing school. So I think it's a really big win that way too. Jordan High is a great community hub for that. I know that they're developing student centers and some things that I think would also be advantageous for a draw for our students. A lot of times students that we're talking about do struggle with a variety of resources. And so this could be a great opportunity for them to get resources, both rehabilitation, some different places that can come in and be part of our planning. So we're really excited about the possibilities that I think we can really launch in, and I think there would be some good resources for fiscal support for this program as well, so.
And next year, part of my TSSP plan is that all of my teachers are going to be ACRES trained and job coach trained for my paraeducators. So, I mean, my land trust plan. So we are looking at how we can expand this program and making sure that all students are able to leave us and be successful members of our community, to be able to be employed, and what that would look like for their futures. So we are hoping that with this move, we're going to be able to expand our program to make sure that we are providing that combination with book rehab as a pre-ets provider, and to be able to help our students be gainfully employed when they leave us. Sorry. Yeah, and we talked over a little bit of the needs of the location. Is there any questions that you have for us? Yes, Karen.
Kind of a comment and a question. I absolutely believe 100% that you need to be out of that basement. There is no question of that, and the sooner the better. So I want you to know I truly, truly support that. I have had a few comments, and it's not an overwhelming one, about the concern of a school within a school. We're doing long-term study situations right now where we're trying to find the best use of Jordan High and to be able to draw in more regular ed students. And they wondered if we got one thing growing too faster than the other, how would that impact each other? And so my question, it's just a question, is there a possibility not to move away from Jordan, but to the outside of Jordan? We have property, there's a strip mall there, and there's also the Joanna's property. If you were able to design and have your own building built, the walking space to the distance is exactly the same. The access to seminary is exactly the same. Bus drop-offs the same. And then you can have it open. They still can go to the auditorium. They still come into lunch. The only difference is, I'm just saying, is that a possibility that you would be willing to consider? Does that make sense? Because I just have had a few people ask me about that. I said, we really didn't discuss it.
We have really, in spite of some of the aesthetics, we've really benefited and enjoyed the opportunity to be here at the district office. It's really improved our program significantly. So we would be welcome to be anywhere we can. It would give us another enhancement, that independence and some of the facilities that I think would enhance it. The separate classrooms, the access to those facilities, outside or inside, we would be.
The only difference is whether it's in one inside the other.
Yes, we
And the
would
time frame would really not change that much because we can't get the bathrooms and all those kinds of things done for obviously this school year. So that would give us a year to get something done. And if it's done, I'm just saying it could be a possibility if you're willing to allow us to discuss. I mean, they're really set on that, but I think we need to discuss what would be the most cost efficient and the best for both schools programs, because you do need the room. And I think you need the visibility of being with students. Your kids don't see other students. They need the modeling. But if they're on the same campus, going to the same school, and they're included at lunchtime and they're included at different times, they may be walking, but they're walking all the time now. I see them everywhere.
Yeah, they're
always walking. They're in great shape.
Yeah.
Better shape than I. If that's a possibility that we could discuss as a board and still approve that you will be moving.
I'm welcome to any suggestion or move that you would have for us. I just know that the pushback I've been getting from my parents is they want a time frame and what's going to happen to CTA.
Yeah.
So I welcome any.
I don't blame them, and I'm not saying no. I'm not. It's just a possibility that was presented in my mind. I thought, we really didn't talk about that as a possibility, and I didn't know which would be a better situation for you. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mrs. Teeny.
Thank you for this information. And it sounds like you've thought through a lot of things. And so a couple of questions that I have though, and also with what Ms. Pedersen was talking about, kind of the timing of things and and resources. So is it true that it's not possible to move for this fall, or is that what you're hoping to do, is move for this upcoming school year?
I'm hoping to have a time frame when we'll move.
Okay, okay. So still trying to put a bunch of pieces together. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The larger hangup in any option we look at is probably the construction timing,
and costs.
and just the long process of bidding out for those things. And, that's what we've discussed in prior.
Okay. So, yeah, so I think I would be interested in hearing more detail on that. And then, we as a board could make a decision on it. And then another question I had, and one of the things that I wasn't sure about from your presentation is, any plans, like whether you're located within the building or a separate location on the campus of Jordan High, what type of integration would there be? Would the CTA students be allowed to attend Jordan assemblies and participate in those things? No, so it would be completely separate.
It would be totally separate, correct? We treat our students like young adults, 18 to 22-year-olds, and we want to have that same mindset moving in if we moved into Jordan High. So it'd be more of a self-contained program within Jordan High School.
One of the draws that we thought as an ancillary benefit would have been having access to some of the facilities for maybe a nighttime program to kind of satisfy that second component. But I think that would work. I think we could make that work regardless.
So Nate, just to follow up on that, my understanding is you had this conversation with SEC there and administration just about age difference and what that looks like when it's a separate program. I know there were some people concerned about the age difference between, a freshman at Jordan High with a student that's in their early 20s in your program.
Valid concern, because, once you're past a certain age, you don't really want those particular people, we don't want older students interacting with our younger students in that same regard, just because we want to make sure we're keeping those lines separate. But we also talked about the idea of access to lunch, not because we were going to go down to the lunchroom, because we just wanted access to the nutrition and the meals and those kinds of things. So it would be we were working something out with Sebastian on how that would look.
So there's parameters and a plan, there'd be a plan in place to how that flow.
Still get access to that nutrition in or outside.
Okay.
Either way, there's
Okay.
lots of ways that we can transport that out.
Leon, did you want to, sorry, after Nancy then? Okay.
No, I'd like to hear what Mr. Wilcox has to say.
Yeah, thank you. Big thank you to Linda and Nate for presenting this. We love our CTA. We love, some of us are biased. We love them having them here, but especially on Wednesdays when they do the little cafe,
The coffee
the
cart.
coffee cart. So
They're doing
yeah,
flower Tuesdays now.
Yeah.
During summer.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so,
Lots of flowers for my wife.
but we love those kids here in the building with us, but we know they do need to move to a better location. Many of you know we have hired an architect as part of our long range planning to look at C-Tech, Eastmont, Crescent View, and Jordan High. I know they spent the last day of school going through Jordan High, them and a bunch of engineers looking at all the possible improvements there, as Karen said. So, and we'll be bringing that to the long range planning and then up to the full board. We have blocked out this rooms. Whether or not this is the best place for them, probably is, but we'll have to look at that. But we are looking at making, as you know, a teen center at Jordan High. We want to start that this summer because we have a grant that expires in December. So we need to get that going and spent so we can access that grant. So that will actually be in the back of the building. But as we work through this, we want to incorporate this process of incorporating the CTA move down there. So that would be part of the plan there. We think of ballparkish figure would be about $500,000 for the ADA restrooms, all the plumbing, and then the remodeling in the classroom. So it's a chunk of change there to do that. We do feel like these kids are certainly worth it though. So that is our goal. We would not have that available for this upcoming year unless they wanted to do maybe a mid-year move in maybe March, which I don't know if that's gonna be even feasible. So but hopefully for the start of the 24-25 school year. I think our process here with them bringing it is to get your input if we're okay moving forward with designing this and at least looking at Jordan High as an option moving forward to house our CTA. We may have a bus go down, bring the coffee cart back on Wednesdays, but
We're planning on this still being a job site for us.
Oh. Well,
Yeah, we still have students working in our cafeteria or at our.
yeah, we do
cafe.
have,
Yes.
we do have kids.
Okay, so we're just having this agenda item to kind of gauge the board's response because in the future, I think it will be brought back to us to actually vote on the cost once we know that. Okay, Mrs. Oakes.
So quick question. We have how many total students in CTA?
Next year, we are looking at 60.
At 60. How many students do we have total at Jordan Valley?
We have 96 right now.
Okay. First of all, I want to say I'm very supportive of the move and of looking at it. And to your point, Amber, you're absolutely right. This is just kind of an initial, toe dipping in the water and helping us understand what the thought is. I am a little bit reticent about the idea of building a whole new building. When we have some significant needs at places like Jordan Valley that really still need to be addressed. It feels like, we would be taking on a whole nother facility and the upkeep attached to that. If we have a way of being able to make it work effectively in the high school, I'm interested in hearing more details of what that might look like. We could come back and decide it's still not a great idea, but I am interested in fleshing it out. And I know there are a lot of parents that would be very happy with a shift or improvement for their kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nybar.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited to see this happen for these kids. But I don't think we're talking about building a new building. It's just a little renovation within Jordan High School. Yeah. Oh,
There is the strip mall that we've talked about a couple of times that could be renovated as well, because there's only 2 occupants. But I don't know, that could be just as expensive.
yeah. So
Just bringing up what people had asked me about.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's a few things that I really like about this going to Jordan High School. I also love the idea that these kids will have some interaction with neurotypical kids. And I think that integration and the more we can sustain and support that integration, the better. So I really like that being housed within a school with neurotypical kids. So as well as expense wise, it makes sense too. So
Okay, thanks, Mrs. Teeny.
Yeah, just
Back
quick
to you.
follow-up. So I understood that they would not be integrating or
No, they will not be integrating.
participating
Correct.
in any type of a formal
The
way.
only way that they would be integrating is we do have some of our students who have a job site at some of our schools that work within the cafeteria, but they will not be integrated like with assemblies or going to classes or anything like that. We will be self-contained within the school. And we spend, just so you know, that we spend a lot of our time out in the community. Like Karen said, she sees us out and going.
Yeah.
So we have what we call one classroom that stays in a day, and then the rest of our students go out. So that rotates depending on the day, the needs of the students, job sites, all of those things. So we spend a lot of time coming in and out of a building. And so our students will not be attending any of the Jordan High School events.
and then
Just to clarify one thing too, we have, like I said, this part of the continuum, we do have students at Jordan Valley who are post-high age 18 to 22, but because of the difference, this is how we're going to address their programming. We kind of staff and place them in different locations. And so that's kind of, we want to continue to broaden that, bring another option for students that may be, again, less impacted in certain ways to provide coordination, graduation requirements, coordination with both rehab. So we're really trying hard to figure out ways that we can connect a student to all of those adult resources to help them launch. That includes CTA, that includes Jordan Valley. And so that kind of will be a hub for all of that activity, but we'll have some localized benefits from being in that area. A high school campus, different accesses to maybe, there's lots of possibilities. We can go over all of them. I mean, there's lots with counseling, there's lots with all of these different resources that traditional high schools have that we might be able to pay for some additional hours or different things like that, that we can use those resources to really benefit all of these students that we're talking about. And I know to fulfill our mission, which is to prepare all of our students to be college and career ready. And again, we have a swath of students that we want to really try to figure out how to serve better that aren't meeting diploma requirements. We'd love to really help out with that too. I think that's really the benefit of all of this, is we can catch another whole group of students that we haven't been able to serve as well at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Nybar.
Really quick. When I was talking about integrating, just the fact that they'll be going to a traditional looking high school like all the other kids, and that they will walk into that building and walk out of that building at the end of the day, and their school looks just like the other kids. But Mrs. Tingy's comment that she brought up did make me think, the fact that they've had the little coffee cart or whatever they've had going on here, it would be neat to see if there were some, obviously they aren't going to be rotating in classes or lunchroom or things like that, but it would be neat to see. I'm sure there's some few little very controlled situations and circumstances where there could be some interaction. And I would be a strong proponent of that, with carts or some little thing. I think that would be a very neat experience for not only the students at the Canyons Transitional, but also the other kids.
Yeah, and we kind of hope too that, we always love win-win-wins for everybody, right? That's kind of what we try to do as much as we can. We hope that some of the opportunities that our students will be able to have, because we'll have job coaches trained from all of our paraeducators, that they'll be able to help do some niche employment and some different things to fulfill. We always have constant shortages, right? And so not that we want to farm them out as labor, but they can use those opportunities to benefit the school community as well. So
Awesome.
we really think that there's a lot of good opportunities that come with getting into a school location, because there's such a variety of facilities and things that we could be as a support to, as well as help our students gain hard skills, which is part of kind of what our mission is to a degree, is helping an employer train our students in hard skills while we work on soft skill development. So we can be that employer, and we can also be the soft skill developer at the same time. That's what the beauty of trying to work through our partnerships with vocational rehabilitation is. We can have control over that holistic component and really have our outcomes improved, because we can control both products, both sides of the product. So.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. So board, are we okay moving this forward? And maybe long range planning can work on like getting a specific proposal to bring to the full board. But they already did meet with long range planning, but we wanted them to come here to make sure the full board was okay with this idea before we kind of went down specifics. So, okay, it looks like everyone nodded, right? Okay. So thank you so much for both of you for being here, and we really appreciate it. And I'm very supportive. Like, I have heard for years about like we need to get the kids out of the basement. So I agree, and I think parents will really like that, and it'll be a great opportunity for our students. So, hey, thank you both. Thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda is hazardous bus routes follow-up, and Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator, will present that.
Thank you, President Shield. Back in, it was the April 11th meeting, one of our few possible hazardous bus stops in a route. And you gave us direction to go out and hire a third-party consultant or a traffic engineer is who we use to evaluate these stops and routes and then bring it back to you. And that's what we're doing here tonight. That traffic engineer compiled a report. That report there is on board docs. Just pull out a couple of the areas. Again, there's 3 of them. Keep in mind, when I say the students, these are the number of students from this past school year. Again, they could have some 5th graders going up to middle school, some incoming kindergarten, some move in, move out. So, but it's going to be roughly the same number of kids. Also, the little red dots in the 3 areas are the approximate stop of where the stop is right now. The first one is in area 1. It's Willow Springs along 138th. You can see per the report, they have didn't have sidewalks. They have put those in. So students can stay on a sidewalk, walk along 138th, then up 3rd East, around 135th, and then into Willow Springs Drive there, staying on the sidewalks. Again, about 11 kids there. This one came back with based on those scores there in the report, a score of 34. Anything higher than 36, we do consider hazardous in providing that bus. This bus, its main route is on the frontage road there in Draper, so west of the school. It could, if we limited this stop, it could hop across the freeway, pick up some of those kids in those developing areas there by the IKEA as well. But that bus would still run. Just wouldn't have this one stop here, do a little different route. So there's that one. Second one is up Lone Peak. This, again, you can see on Wasatch, they did not have sidewalks. They put those in. You can see the walking route there. So this bus comes up, it actually picks up students on the south side of 123rd. So quite, a little bit of distance away from this stop here. What it has to do is come up Wasatch, and since it's on the right-hand side of the road, it has to turn into that road there, Hidden Valley Drive, do the stop, then turn it back around, come back out on Wasatch, then up over into the school is how that one runs there. So that would, of course, the route would still exist. It just would keep going up into Wasatch and then into Lone Peak, would not do that cutoff into Hidden Valley Drive to pick up those 16 or so students there. Third one is East Midvale. This is one route, so there is this whole route would be limited here for, roughly 14 kids. Again, just about a mile from the school. There's 2 stops. This is the furthest one is about a mile from the school, though the second one's a little bit closer. But you can see it did not have sidewalks going down there on 7th East. They've been installed. This one came back with the lowest of the 3 of the 33 points. Also, we talked about last time about the Hillcrest entrance. Since we now have an east side entrance instead of going through, if you will, the west side entrance against by state code, it's the nearest entrance. The midpoint of the road, the nearest entrance is where the mileage starts measuring. We do see here would be the map. So where the blue line is, that is the boundary now. It would extend out to the edge of that green shaded area there. So it would extend further east. Around 100 last year, we had 77 kids, 2 buses, 130 ride. High school students, we don't get a whole lot riding, and it will vary throughout the year based on their activities before and after school. But we had roughly 40 ride in that area on the bus those 2 days. I believe we'd stop to run both these routes as other areas as well. So this was discussed at their April 12th SCC meeting, the day after we talked about it here in the board meeting. We have not received any feedback from the SCC. Principal Levitt said some people might have feedback, but we have not received any backs from it. So with that, that's the whole presentation. What we've done we haven't done any hazardous routes since pre-COVID. Well, since COVID. Yeah, pre-COVID, I guess it's before COVID, right? Yeah. Been a long school year. So, there's two ways to do this. I think we've kind of done a little bit mixed bag back pre-COVID. We were able to just handle this as an administration and said, okay, we've done the third party analysis with the traffic engineer, and we'll notify these families that these stops would be eliminated. Or in the case of the East Midville, the whole route would be eliminated. Or we can start having the board bring in these to the board and having you approve them. So it was supposed to be in the study session, so we can't take action since it was there, so you can't really take action tonight, but you could give us direction on how you would like to proceed moving forward with these.
Okay, so.
And
Yeah.
questions.
So just going along with what Mr. Wilcox is saying, so in the past, the board has sometimes voted on this and sometimes not. So we could just decide that we want the administration to take care of it, or we could bring it back, I guess, and vote on it. So Mrs. Oaks.
Thanks, Leon. Just to follow up and be clear, these routes like that we're talking about where it used to be bused or would have been previously bused, are those cities going to step in and make sure that we have crossing guards in those spots?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So it would function like any other typical busy street where we have crossing guards already, but the difference is that there are now sidewalks that enable them to walk to the.
That's the difference,
Crosswalk.
they had a hazard, under state law, I think everybody knows. Elementary kids are the ones that usually qualify for the hazardous, so anything under 1.5, and we always have those issues that are, the 1.4 miles away, that have to be bused. So we try and be consistent district wide. And so when there is a hazard, we like to have a third party engineer, traffic engineer with the rubric you saw on board docs come in and do a scoring of that. That way it's a third party professional doing that. Then we determine if the hazard is still there or if the hazard has been removed. And so then based on if it's been removed to an extent based on their scoring matrix, then our practice has been not to provide that stop, just to be fair to the other, hundreds and really thousands of other students who live in that same type of, same type of situation. And that would fall under the safe walking routes of the school, which would, assign the crossing guards to make sure they're in place where they need to be. Yes.
So are there currently crossing guards in those spots?
No, right. Well, again, the crossing guards get closer to where the school is.
Right.
Yeah. So right now, I don't think there's any crossing guards in that where those stops are, but as you get closer to the school, the
Sure.
more kids come in.
And then how does that work with the city? I mean, once the administration decides or, we approve something, how does that function?
So what we do under Susan leads this off with our transportation people and Ryan Jakeman, our risk managers, we meet with the cities every year and we go over the safe walking routes and we try to tell them where we'd like the improvements made so we can eliminate some of these bus routes and bus stops and also make things safer for our kids. So, it's an open dialogue. We done that for years, meeting with them at least once a year and sometimes more on improvements we'd like to see made for this purpose. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions? Mrs. Nybar?
Thanks for the presentation. I was just going to point out that it's also really great for us to work with the city and try to make them non-hazardous because on the flip side, there's a lot of kids that live farther than that don't get the bus just because they have a safe walking route. So this also helps us be a little more equitable in a way.
Yeah.
We want to keep kids safe, but we also don't want people to feel like, well, we're way farther than that. We don't get a bus and not the parents and families don't always understand that there's a rule there for us that way. And so that kind of helps too, because sometimes
invariably we always have people who live, you measure it. There's precise language on how you measure it. And invariably we have somebody who's 1.498 and, who misses the bus by literally feet.
We're one of those families that's just barely outside of busing. So we've never been bused ever. So carpool is my friend.
Okay, Mrs. Tingy?
Yes, thank you for bringing this to us with the additional information from the last time we talked about this. I'm comfortable with having the administration make a decision on these types of things because we have in place a process with a rubric and a kind of a cut score. But I do think it's very valuable to bring it to the board so that we're aware of it for our information so that we can, if it happens to be in the area where we represent, we get questions about it, then we are aware of it. But because the whole issue, whether it's the 1.5, 1.498, all of that has to do with what the state will reimburse us for. And so, I believe Canyons is one of the few districts that we make a significant investment in providing these hazardous bus routes without any state reimbursement on them.
Yeah, we do about over 1.2 million, so we're very high up there, yeah. Most of them are, I think we have one middle school route, it's all no high school, but as you sell that rubric, the elementaries will always rate higher than the upper levels, but yeah.
So I appreciate the very careful attention that is being paid to this, so that we can not only be equitable, but also efficiently use our valuable resources and funding.
Okay, so the rest of the board, are you okay with the administration moving forward with this? Okay, the only thing I would add is that let's just make sure we communicate this early and probably multiple times to parents, because in the past, that's where we've had problems with this type of thing, so.
Yeah, very good point, President. So what we'll do is have our transportation people work with Jeff and Kirsten on drafting a message and trying to get that out here soon. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, thank you. We can go on to our next agenda item, and that is our strategic plan focus group, access and opportunity, and Wendy Dow, Director of Federal and State Programs, is going to be presenting that. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, since that's going to take a minute, then Wendy, I'm going to start with, we have some flowers for you because we knew that this was your last meeting. So anyway, thank you so much. And we are going to miss you, and we love your enthusiasm and your passion, and you will do awesome at Provo, but we will miss you here. So anyway.
We're only slightly bitter with them.
Anyway, hopefully that took a minute. Yeah, do you want to go ahead? Yeah, be board members, if you'd like to say anything, we could do that right now too. Okay, why don't we just start with Mrs. Nybar and we'll go down. Board members want to talk about Wendy.
We're trying to make you cry before your
Although-
presentation.
Although make sure, did you send it to them? Okay, perfect. And concentrate.
Okay, well, as you were talking, I was starting to cry, so I'm not going to cry, but well, I guess I can't promise, but I just not only am I grateful for Wendy's unexhaustible amount of passion and energy, but also her work ethic. What she takes and runs with is incredible, and her vision that she has as we were going through the strategic plan and the engaged classroom experience coupled with her knowledge as a principal and a former teacher. I just hope we have many conversations in the future so that we can continue to share that wealth of knowledge that you have and that vision that you have. Because I think what's neat is now Provo is going to have a little branch of canyons in a way. And so that will be exciting to see that journey. But it's sad that this is your last board meeting, but we're also very excited for your new opportunity, and you will lead with grace. And that's something else that I've noticed in Wendy. She's just a class act. So thank you.
Amanda, Mrs. Oaks.
Okay, so I still remember getting to know you the first time on a committee for dual language immersion. And I was so impressed. I was like, who is this lady? She's amazing. This is when I was trying to figure out who everybody was. But I have been so impressed by your talents over the years. You have unbelievable amounts of passion and dedication. You really deeply care about the kids. You're an administrator that has been in district administration not very long, but have proven to be such a valuable resource. It feels indispensable to me, honestly. And one of the things I love most about you is the fact that you can always feel your love of the classroom. You didn't come into higher administration in order to get out and take a break. You really came in wanting to improve things and elevate things and see everyone improve together. And you really deeply love the learning process. And I can feel that from you. And for as sad as I am that you're leaving, as a female professional, I love seeing other capable women raise up into situations and positions where their gifts are going to fully blossom and be realized. And for that, I feel so much joy. And I'm really excited that we get to still see you at USBA and hear your perspective and your comments. I mean, you're going to add a lot to that conversation too, which is long overdue. So I am really thrilled for you. And thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Jeannie.
Thank you for letting us just say a few things about you. Appreciate it. Yeah. You were pretty new to the district while I was still pretty new on the board. And I remember attending some of the events, the middle school, and watching how you interacted with your staff and students there and being so impressed. And then at Jordan High, some of the activities there. And I'll always remember your graduation speeches and how very insightful they were and how very connected with the students you were. And then moving here to the district office and your advocacy and your passion and your joy of working with and providing and recognizing and watching out for all kids is unmatched. I've never seen anything like it. I know there's a lot of people that share that same passion. And so I know we're going to be in good hands when you move on to your new role as the superintendent. And I know you'll take all of those strengths and all of that experience and all of that passion and love to Provo. I'm excited for them, and I'm grateful for what you've shown us and shown me personally. And hopefully we'll carry on with the legacy that you're leaving us on how to do this with passion, with love, with insight, and with great energy. So, thank you.
Mrs. Pedersen?
Well, Wendy, don't know you as well as everybody else. I'm the newbie, but my first exposure to you as you were administrator at Jordan High. I had a grandson who was there and I attended graduation. It was marvelous. I could see how much love you had for the students and the disappointment that they had that they weren't going to get to keep you. Even though they were excited to be going, you weren't excited. You were or you weren't. Does that make sense? It was a bittersweet, like now, a bittersweet situation. Working with you on committees has been amazing. You're approachable, you're open to ideas, your enthusiasm is amazing because if things are starting to drag, you can pop it right back up, get that energy level. Notice what you've done to the meeting tonight. Boom. Okay, we have energy now, which is great because you need that spark. You know, sometimes you just need to have that spark, but you're just a well-rounded, wonderful person. And I love getting to know you and your husband at different events. We talk tomatoes and and we will miss you, but I wish could get to know you even better. But what I know of you is amazing. And I'm just so proud to say we know Wendy Dow and we will always claim you. So I don't care what Provo says, you're ours. But we love and appreciate you. So best wishes from us. Thank you.
Okay, are you ready now? Okay, great. Oh, that was supposed to go at the end, not at the beginning, but anyway. Okay, any questions or comments, Lori? Okay, okay. Mrs. Oaks first.
I love all of this. It's awesome. I really appreciated when you and Cindy called me and just said, hey, here's some of the thoughts we have about advanced learning. What do you think? It was such a great conversation, and I appreciated how open you were with making sure every board member was aware and had a chance to provide input. That was awesome. I love, wow, the 59 out of 60. That's dazzling. So congratulations to Principal Levitt as well. But I am really excited about all of this, and I'm excited to see what the indicators are that I know that the committee has been working on. I think it's going to be awesome. Just as an aside, hearing your passion again about helping those kids that are underprivileged. I have a niece who is a teacher in a Title I school in Provo. And as I hear you speaking, you are going to the right place. Like what we have been able to accomplish and work on and focus on, I'm just excited to see that replicated in other places. You're going to do great. So.
Okay, Mrs. Nybar.
This is so awesome. Thank you for the presentation and for the work. And I also really appreciated the fact that you met with me as well, and that you did that with all the board members to catch, that vision with those that weren't on the committee. So that was amazing. I had two thoughts, and one was when we're talking about access and opportunity, you already talked about project-based and engaged learning, but how the conversation goes, and I think you know where I'm headed, but with Chromebook usage. When we talk about access and opportunity, I know during COVID we had that study who had internet access at home. And then there's this whole other side of it too. There's students that aren't comfortable navigating on a screen, and it's very difficult for them, and they really need like a pen and paper. And as far as making sure with that access and opportunity, I'd love to have that be a bullet point of that we're providing enough opportunities for those kids to have not only hands-on engaged collaborative, where they're speaking, which is music to my ears, but I love that. But also that we're having enough pen and paper experiences too. And there's things that can happen that way. We know, like with language acquisition too, with multi-language learners, that is more difficult on a keyboard. And so just having that be a bullet point. But I love all of this work. Thank you. And I agree with the fact that your knowledge and your experience, and I'm sure that's why you were selected, with all the programs that you've worked with here in the district, how that's going to help Provo. So.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks.
I forgot one thing, sorry. I love this discussion about using, what is it called? The STEM ally that you were talking about. What's the name of it? PLTW. Yeah, Project Lead the Way. I looked them up. They're really impressive organization, and I think it's awesome. One of the things I just wanted to add as an aside as a possible opportunity for acceleration is the program called Odyssey of the Mind. It's been around for many years. My friends that have kids attend school in other states, it's a really big thing. And a lot of the kids coming out of those districts will often talk about how Odyssey of the Mind was the main program or experience that they had growing up through school. And it goes all the way from kindergarten, I think, through 12th grade, where they really learned creative problem solving and had to learn how to think outside of the box. I've looked up the cost associated with it. It's actually nominal from what I'm seeing. So anyway, I know you had a list of different options that elementary schools and others can consider, but I wonder if maybe that could be added to the list.
Okay, thank you so much. And we really appreciate your work on this committee. And I wanted to give the superintendent and Leon a minute to say something if they would like. We kind of left them out, but you were ready to present with that work.
Dang it. No, Wendy, thank you for all that you've done. And we talked about this a little bit in cabinet. And I mentioned this to Wendy in cabinet before. I think when Wendy came onto cabinet, she brought a whole new level of collaboration that we really hadn't experienced and that we needed. And so I'm very grateful for her participation and expertise. And, you know, a couple of things I think worthy of being noted. One, the collaboration between her department and ISD, especially around really building instructional support for our ML students, has been amazing. And I think the direction that we're going in the district is one that, you know, is really going to serve our students well, as our population is more and more diverse. So I really appreciate that. And then lastly, her work with teen centers and really making that a staple in Canyon School District and our vision to really provide wraparound services to our students. You know, I don't know that we fully understand the impact that that's had, you know, including inviting parents in on canyoneering nights and different opportunities for parents to engage. But you know, her relationship to families is unprecedented. So just appreciate all you've done, Wendy, and what you've meant to the district and so many families and students. And I mentioned too, I'm looking forward to seeing her, you know, with our superintendent crew. So it'll be great to keep working with you. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wilcox.
Just a big thank you to Wendy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you came here, you were a vice principal at Jordan High. And then for the 2 years we were rebuilding Midville Middle, you were the principal down at the Crescent View. So we had to deal with all the big move down every day, transporting
13 buses.
13, yeah, I knew it was around 13 bus loads of students and the collection points and everything down and back. And then when we get it built, you get moved to Jordan High. So you didn't even get to spend a day in the new building. So, but again, thank you. Again, I feel like you've just taken our cabinet to a whole different level with your passion, your knowledge, your input. So thank you very much for all of us. You know, I kept kind of prying my counterpart, Derek, down at Provo, how the hiring process was going. And he says, I'm not sure, but boy, I really, really like the candidate from Canyons. She just is full of passion. And I go, she is, and she's going to be wonderful. I hope they choose her. And so we're excited for your future, but know that you're close. And thank you again for everything that you've done here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Okay, we'll go on to our next item, and that is legislative updates. And this is third reading action requested. Jeff Christensen, Assistant Legal Counsel, will present this.
Thank you, President Schill. I'll be brief. At our second reading, I presented the 5 policies that are for legislative update. There was a question that was raised about the board governance policy. I've noted it in your presentation. There was one section where we've updated for election of board officers. That'll be by roll call rather than by raise of hand. That was the issue raised by board member Edel during our last meeting. That was one thing that was requested, and I omitted it from the red line. So that's been adjusted. In the student attendance policy, there was also some language to add at the very beginning to address promoting student attendance through engagement in the classroom. That's been added. In terms of the other documents, there aren't any changes from the second reading. These are all legislative updates for our policy manual based on legislation from the last session. I can answer specific questions.
Okay, board, thank you for explaining those changes. I appreciate that. Are there any questions or discussion? Oh, okay. Are we ready for a motion then?
I'll make that motion. I move that we approve let's see, we don't have the numbers listed there, so I'll read them here. That we approve the changes to policy 100.01, policy 500.05, policy 500.02, and policy 600.02, and policy 500.35 as presented on board docs.
I'll second that motion. Yes.
Oh, shoot, I didn't have my microphone on. Okay, Mrs. Nyberg.
I just wanted to thank Jeff for the changes. The policy about student attendance, as you'll note at the beginning, we talk about the fact that we expect an engaged classroom experience will lend itself to, also helping with our attendance issues that we have. And I really like having that in there so that it's clear that we acknowledge that the classroom experience needs to be rewarding, and needs to be different than just if they were to be at home, on their Chromebook or something, that it's different and there's a value added to that. And I think that's a great addition to the other things that we have put into place there. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else? Mrs. Tingy?
Thank you. One other thing, and thank you, Jeff, for all of this. This is a lot of work, and just board be ready. This is just kind of the beginning. We still have a pretty long list of legislative updates for policies. So, Mr. Christensen has done a tremendous amount of work, and these were kind of the easy ones, right? And it's still a lot of work, but so just watch out, more's coming. So thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks.
So I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. The attendance policy thing it's rough. We don't have much help from the legislature. And I agree with Ms. Nybar with regard to having really engaging classrooms. I will say though, I had an insightful conversation recently when I attended the ballroom dance performance at Alta High School. Erin Hadfield's wife, Wendy, was there, and I had a great conversation with her. So for those of you who, these two to my left, obviously know who he is. He's amazing. He's probably one of the most phenomenal teachers Canyons has ever seen. He does the American Problems class right at Brighton. Unbelievably interactive, incredibly hands-on. Kids that come out of that program are just, they talk about it for years afterwards. But she said even he has really struggled with having kids attend regularly. And so in that respect, it doesn't matter how engaging a teacher is. Sometimes if we don't have any expectations attached to student attendance, we can still lose kids. So I think it's a balance between those two elements. I think it's still really important, of course, to have an engaging classroom, but also to have some standards in place is helpful. And our teachers have been asking for it.
Okay, thank you, board. And I just want to thank the policy committee because I know you guys, it's been a lot of work just with these, and I guess it's just the beginning. So keep going, you guys. Okay, so we have a motion to approve these policies and we have a second. So I will now call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 7 on the agenda. Board members, under Utah state law, it's our responsibility to adopt a budget that will govern the district's revenues and expenses for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. We will also be asked to adopt a final budget for the current year that will be ending on June 30th, 2023. This portion of the meeting will proceed as follows. In a moment, I will ask for a motion and a second to open a public hearing. We will then have a presentation by Leon on the budget. Following his presentation, we will take public comments. Following the comments, I will ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing. The board can then discuss the budget and ask further questions. We will then conduct a vote to adopt the final 2022-2023 budget and the budget for 2023-2024. We will take a separate vote for each budget. May I now receive a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll do that. I declare an opening of the public hearing of fiscal year 2022-23 final budget and the fiscal year 2023-24 budget.
Okay,
or I move, whatever.
thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second to that?
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public budget hearing. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. I will now turn the time over to Mr. Wilcox for his presentation.
Thank you, President Schill. We always like to just inform the public they are part of this discussion. So under state law, so we do ask that you declare a public hearing open so the public can participate after we go over this presentation. So we'll go over this presentation, allow for any public comment that may be here, then you can close that public hearing. And you can move the meeting back to you to discuss or ask any questions on the budget and then adopt them both. So we'll try to get through this fairly quickly. I have here the budget that's on board docs and been on our website for the last few weeks. I may hold that up a couple times. That's what's here. A lot of this stuff you've seen before. I've just copied charts out or over the last few meetings as well. So that's how we'll just go through this, I think, fairly quickly. And if you have any questions, let me know. We'll probably not try to get in too much of the weeds here with all these numbers. Again, our budget is about 13,000 Excel lines. Really don't want to go over each one, so we'll just go hit a few highlights here. Again, we're asking you to adopt a budget for this current year. You can see what you approved last year at this time, and then what we're requesting you to revise or adopt this year. So our revenues have gone up a little bit. The big increase there is that's really helped us. It's really saving us this year is the interest that we're earning on our investments. The interest rates are up, right? So we're earning much more, about 4 million more than we thought we'd get. That has really saved us. We still may deficit spend this year, but it won't be very much because of that interest income. We've also got a higher amount. One of our CDAs was Sandy City, that north area with the Hale Center Theater, gone on a different increment amount. So we got a lot more from that, about $1 million more than we expected. We also have other funds that, as the year goes on, new grants and different amounts in TSSA and Land Trust, AP, concurrent. We got letters funding, substance abuse, more federal funds that we're planning to use. So then on our expense side, we have, carryovers from last school year that the schools carry over for supplies and equipment added back into their budget. So that increases the budget. And then also some of those items we talked about last time, like natural gas, diesel, maintenance parts added back in. So you can see our, percentage wise didn't change a whole lot. Our revenues go up about 2.8%, expenses about 2.4%. So evening out a little bit, but that interest income is really helping us as we close out this year. Couple other funds, our debt did not change, but our capital fund, we call these our major funds. Capital fund changed because we did more work mainly on Peruvian Park, but a little bit on Glacier Hills this year than we expected to do last year. Again, Peruvian Park was just delayed with all the the supply chain issues that we had. Our insurance, we're actually having a really good year in our insurance fund. So we're actually decreasing the expense amount that we're asking you to approve there. These are other minor funds. We won't go through those. The main one, the district activity had the largest change. That's just trying to match up our expected revenues from fees and fundraising to our costs there as well. So now we'll move on to what we're asking you to approve for next year. So these are all the funds. We have 7, 8 funds. You can see the total amount there for each one. So when someone asks, what's the budget for Canyon School District? It'd be that expenditure amount. That's what we're asking you to approve, is for us to spend just under $530 million in all those funds combined. So that would be our budget, over $500 million. You can see the revenues, the expenses, and the deficits. Again, I want to emphasize, we always underestimate our revenues and overestimate our expenses. Okay. So that way we try to make sure we're balanced, but We're asking you to approve this much. We will spend less, but this is what we're asking you to approve. Again, you see all those deficits there, but that we go to the next slide, we have balances that, that we can absorb these. So you can see our beginning balance, our deficits, our transfers, and then our ending balance right there. So we still expect to have an ending balance in all our funds of about $100 million. By the time we're through, and likely be higher than that because of our budgeting practices that we've done over the last decade or so. Let's just hit some of our couple of our biggest funds. Our general fund, it's going to be 370 million. The first year was about 190 million, so we've basically doubled in 14 years. That's all our our salaries are the biggest part, but benefits, supplies, and whatnot. You can see the money coming in is about 37% property taxes, and then about 27% each for state unrestricted. That'd be just the straight WPU funds, and then the state restricted funds. That could be special ed, CTE, the 32 hours for professional development, those funds, transportation, all lumped in there. Also, we get more federal funds will start to drop a little bit as we lose up our ESSERs this last year. Then we have a little bit, a slice there of local. That would be, big chunk of that is our interest income there. Again, taking all that money, spending it all out. We look at it a couple different areas. Instruction, how we're going to do it by function. We look at instruction and going around the pie chart. Our facilities, that's our utilities. Our staff, that's our coaches and our media specialists, school admin, students, or counselors, or psychologists, social workers, centrals here, payroll, communications, HR, IT, transportation. So we, when you talk true admin, it'd be just that slice of, roughly 1% there. What type of expense are we having is what's called the object code, and education is people, right? It's going to be 90% salaries and benefits for people. Everybody talks AI, but it's never going to replace a teacher working with kids, right? So it's always going to be people. Small breakout of the other areas there. What's included in the budget, again, those 13,000 lines, I'll just hit the top three there, would be the state money from the WPU increase 6%, plus other state increases in TSSA, land trust, transportation. We hit some of those last meeting. We're living within the certified property tax rate with new growth that has come on to the that will come onto the rolls this year. And then the biggest expense would be the what you approved on May 6th on the negotiation agreements with the certified employees, ESP, and administrators. You can see the other items there. We won't go down those. Here's our balance at the end of next year. We will be possibly making a transfer to capital. We'll have to see how that plays out. Again, our to finish up Peruvian Park, Glacier Hills, Union, that cost inflation, we may have to use some of our and we've planned this out for the last several years, some of our fund balance to cover those expenses. We will also be, as we did last year, be moving funds excess revenue that's allowed under state code 11-14-310 excess funds in our debt service can be used for technology. So that's also helping us balance our budget with that provision there. Again, our ending fund balance, we're budgeting to be 63.5. I do expect it to be higher because our beginning fund balance or ending one this year will be higher. So, but again, we kind of budget for, possibly a worst case scenario there. Here's our classifications. Again, that assign gives us, some flexibility there of that 31 million, how to keep operating the district. So that's still a pretty good, healthy balance moving forward. Move to our capital fund. It's 31,700,000 we're asking you to approve. This would be the lowest since 2011 when we first started our big bond project. So We had one year, I think it was 2018-ish. We had about 42 million. Every other year, we've spent more than $50 million in capital since we've been, since starting in 2012. And it shows with the 20-something projects that we've done. We went over those last meeting. Here's the big ones. The big one is Union, completing Union. That would also include, that 9.7 includes all the equipment and furniture that we'll be buying. That's about $1 million. And taking down the old building and doing the fields there. Some of these are underway now that school's out. The band room, the lighting projects at Brookwood and Canyon View, the turf replacement at Corner Canyon, the sidewalks at Oakdale, all underway now. Then there's other things that just come up for plumbing, carpeting, electrical, remodeling. We have 5.1 million there, 2.8 million in just ongoing replacing our networks or upgrading our networks and our IT projects there, and just school equipment that we allow our principals to purchase to help move their schools forward. Part of our issue is our outstanding debt. We'll hit some of that now. So we have these lease revenue bonds and we have general obligation bonds. Our lease revenue bonds we use to pay Peruvian and to build Peruvian and Glacier. We'll make our first payment is due, will be retired next week, next Thursday, June 15th. So once that payment goes through, we'll be down to about 34,825 in those bonds. A year from now, we'll be down to 31,825. You can see this payment schedule there. Again, they're callable after June 30th or 31, meaning we can pay them off at any time after that or keep making the payments, but still a ways out with that. This is the one that keeps me up late at night, is our fund balance in our capital fund. To get these projects done, we're really just pulling everything out of it to get these completed. But we promised the taxpayers and the citizens that we would do that. So at the end of this year, we'll probably have just over $2 million in our capital fund, which is dangerously low. Now, it's not all bad because we'll start to replenish that over the next couple of years as we don't have any ongoing projects and can still do some things. But that, when people have come around asking me for some capital money, I've been pretty grumpy lately because I have to say no. And that is why that's a big concern, is that balance right there. We can still looking at maybe selling some property in Draper and doing some things with the fields down there. And we can still do some small capital improvements over the next couple of years as well. I put in 10 million there for 25 through 27. We've already got 24 situated. But so there, all is not lost, but we just need to be cognizant of that we drew it down. We're going to try to rebuild it back up slowly, but know that's an issue that we have. And so we'll have to be careful as we look at the long range planning of some of these buildings. We probably have enough ongoing funds to do one more lease revenue if we wanted to, but that would be about it. And so we'll have to be pretty prudent as we move forward on looking at our options. Our debt service, again, our budget there is roughly the same as this year, about $45 million. We are making some pretty good headway. After next week, when our bond payments due, we'll be down to 395. That's still a tremendous amount of debt, in my opinion, for a district our size, but we have drawn down about 100 million over the last few years with the refunding that we've done. So we've made good progress there. And with the payment next year, we'll be down to about 365 million. So as I said, we made good progress, especially now that we don't have that Jordan debt that we're paying on. So we can make good progress on ours. You can see here's the schedule from the blue is the 2010 from that election in 2010. What we still owe is in the blue there. And then in the orangish color, it would be from the 2017 election. The nice thing is we are rapidly paying it down. So within the next 5 years, about just under half or 46% will be due or paid off. In 10 years from now, we'll have about another 35+% paid off. So, bond writers like to see that you're paying it off in a rapid manner and not living it out there for the next generation to handle. So that is good news that way. The final funds, we won't be hitting changing nutrition services. We are drawing down that balance because, we had a big balance because the Fed subsidizes for the free meals for the last 2 years. But we are drawing that down. But our inflation on food and labor continues to be a problem that we'll have to watch as we move forward. You can see our other funds, minor funds, the biggest one there would be just the bottom bullet, our self-insurance fund. Again, we're having a good year this year, but that varies and has spikes because we could have a lot of sick people one year and not so many the next year. So, but we always watch that one as well, because that's a big part of our compensation package to our employees. We'll now move on to the property taxes. We don't have the rates yet from the county and the state. Won't have that likely until next week, but this is what we're kind of foreseeing out there. Again, the blue highlighted area is the basic rate, being that freeze ending. This is the last year that freeze. So next year will become unfrozen, if you will. So that rate will float down we're looking at 0.0014, which is quite a drop there. Our other rates, depending on, will likely drop just a slight bit because of this increased in assessed valuation. But right now we're looking at around a 0.57 rate. That would be our lowest ever if it stays there. Again, property values go up, the tax rate goes down. We bring in the same amount of money each year. Here's a statement that I showed you last time. But the county assessor has said that our average home value has gone up just under 0.5%, or just over 0.5%, or $3,600. So this is that person's. If somebody had the average value, there's probably only 3 out of the 58,000 homes out there who have this. But if you had that exact same value, you can see your tax is owed would drop this upcoming year by about $125 is what we're expecting. Now that could change as the certified rate gets fleshed out. Again, the big difference is that middle line there. These are the 3 lines patrons see on their property tax statements. The state basic levy, the middle line, they're dropping from 1652 to 14. That's almost $100 for this average property tax homeowner. Keep in mind, it varies. Again, 58,000 homes, thousands and thousands of possibilities. My home, I looked today, they just put out the rate, your values on your homes. They're out there on the county website. My home actually went down a little bit in value. Holly's home could have gone up, okay, to offset a little bit or something like that. That's just how it works. That's how the county assessor appraises your individual property and how that change in the certified tax rate versus the change in your property is how much so it will change your taxes. So, and again, it will be various all over. It's important to remember the district will not bring in any more money than it did this year, except for new growth, new properties coming on the tax roll. So I looked, it seems like some of the businesses started to creep back a little higher this year. I looked at 15 or so. So we'll have to see how that's a positive there. Some actually, I saw a couple that actually dropped in value. So, but I think overall it seems like businesses the commercial real estate starting to bounce back a little bit for us. So here's I'll just leave these up there. These are the possible motions to approve our final budget of the revenues and expenditures for this current year. And our second motion for next year will be to set the certified tax rate as calculated by the State Tax Commission. Authorize any revenue budget adjustments to reflect funds received from the certified tax rate. Set the state basic rate at the rate determined by the USBE when they calculate it out. And set our debt rate to generate sufficient revenue to pay the debt but not exceed that rate, which is $15.65, which is what we promised our patrons in the 2017 bond. We know it's going to be substantially less than that rate. So with that, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to Danny for his help with preparing it. This is his first year working on the budget, so big thank you. He's been a great help and a great assistance putting this all together. So with that, we'll see if there's any patron comments, and then you can close the public hearing and ask any questions.
Okay, so are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, please come forward, Steve. So Steve Van Maren is here, and we're glad you're here. So come on up, and we would love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve Van Maren, Sandy resident. I'm very new to this view because I've been spending my time at Sandy, watching the 32% tax increase coming over there. Thank you for not raising taxes. I'm sure Sandy residents all over will appreciate that there's no impact from you. I have questions for Leon, but I don't think I need to bore the board with them, so carry on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, so now board, we can close this public hearing. So do I have a motion to close the public budget hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so thank you. We have a motion and a second to close this public budget hearing. I will now ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we will have a chance to discuss the budget. So board, are there any questions for Mr. Wilcox? Or comments? Mrs. Tingy?
Thank you. This looks so simple and I know it's not. But when I just wanted to point out in the what?
I'm sorry, I just said I don't think it looks simple. Leon makes it look simple,
Yeah.
right?
I was
But
just
yeah.
thinking how smart you are, Nancy, because I don't think it looks simple.
Well, you do a good job of making something very complicated, somewhat understandable for the rest of us. So thank you. As you were giving this presentation, I just had a thought that I wanted to share. And it's the slide where it's you're talking about our general fund expenditures by function. And I know there's a lot of discussion out in the public about, money should go to the classroom and things like that. And as I was looking at that and you were kind of briefly going over the other colors of that pie, I'm so grateful that you use a pie chart to illustrate this, because I circled the very center of that pie. And in my mind, I pictured that center is the classroom, and everything else that this district does is and puts resources towards is pointed and centered on that classroom. And I just in my mind, and I won't take time to go through it, but how each and every one of those functions supports the classroom and what's happening in the classroom. And I wanted to point that out because so often people can kind of look at this information and, how much money we're spending on what in their minds are unrelated to instruction or unrelated to the classroom. And they're really not. And I think this is a good illustration of that. So I just wanted to share that thought.
Yeah, what really the term is they're supporting, you got instruction, then they're supporting services. So everything else, the other outside the blue, is supporting the instruction in the classrooms. And whether it's, I like kind of look at the green, the purple, the yellow, and the red. They're all still all in our schools, all those colors every day. So working right there, supporting what's going on in the classroom. And, even the transportation, the central, the paying of the teachers and the human resource and the IT is still supporting that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. T. Are there any other comments? Oh, Mrs. Nybar.
Thank you for this presentation. And, I do agree with Ms. Tingy. You've done a great job of, the pie charts are excellent. It's easy to understand that. I also, actually, your graphics are great too. You've got pictures in there inserted and things showing, kind of a great quick look at the things that are meaningful to us. So I think that's great too. And it kind of ties it all together that, hey, instruction and the students, this is what this is all about. I just had two things. On your slide 45, that same pie chart that Nancy was just referring to, you had a little asterisk at the bottom. Budget for the internal service fund is excluded from the graph on slide 45.
Oh, so what that is, that's looking at the whole district. So this is just the general fund. What that one does is our internal service fund, we transfer money from our general fund into this internal service fund, because that services our insurance claims.
Okay,
So it's kind of doubling it twice. if
I
we
see.
include
So that's
that.
why it's
So
not in there.
That's why I pulled
Okay.
that out of that.
That was
chart.
my question.
Yeah.
Is if it was it was counting it twice. Okay, that's why it's not in there. Okay, and then, Mont Millerberg's not here, and he always has a lot of really great questions for you. And he begins with, now, I'm not sure if my math is right. And I tried my hardest to figure out a way to ask a question where I could start it that way. And, I don't have anything for you, but maybe it's good. You don't, you don't have those questions tonight. I did text Mont as you began speaking. I said, "Are you missing board meeting?" And I won't tell you what he responded with, but I said, Leon's going through budget and we need some of your good questions. And I'm still waiting. I don't have anything, but anyway, thank you for this. And you do a good job of showing how we can easily decipher what's going on. So appreciate it.
I have a question, and don't go back to, because it's another pie chart one. So it's number 11, slide 11. Oh yeah, by sources. So I just when I look at this slide, it makes me think about how the legislature, I don't think understands our funding and how we're restricted quite a bit on what we can use our money for, right?
Yeah.
So this is just one thing I would like to try to talk to our legislators about, right? Because they think they give us all this money that's unrestricted and that we're making choices, but we really have a lot of money that's restricted in what we can use it for. So
We do, yeah.
so anyway, that's my comment. Yeah, Mrs. Oaks.
That's awesome. Thank you. This is a ton of work. And it's a special skill set to be able to take an 116-page document and disseminate it into intelligible slides. It's really rough. But Leon, I just want to express how appreciative I am as a board member for all of your work, and that you do a great job helping us. I'm sure it's probably frustrating for you, who's somebody who's so adept with numbers, to have to explain it to people on a very rudimentary level and help them understand things. But you always handle that with a lot of grace. And I really appreciate how kind and accommodating you were when Ms. Nyber and I had people from our area with significant questions attached to their property taxes. You came to Corner Canyon, answered those questions. There was a lot of frustration and passion in the room, but you handled it really well, and I think helps people to understand why their property tax statement looked the way it did. And I learned a lot that night. It was very helpful. So I just want to commend you for another amazing budget, summary, and helping us better understand each year by year where we're at. I know it's not the ideal. I know a lot of it has to do with inflation. Part of me wonders, for the public's awareness, should they ever go to the budget and look up this
this presentation, if it would be worthwhile to also have attached to it or have available those slides that you previously provided us with regard to inflationary numbers. Because I think it helps flesh out part of the, like what we're seeing here and why the numbers are more difficult to manage this year in comparison to years past. So.
We can actually, we're compiling our budget book right now. We can actually put a few slides of that in there. So.
Yeah, it seems to be a placeholder that would make sense. I mean, if I'm a member of the public going to look up, questions about budget to see their pieces of inflation, every member of the public I've shared that with, they're astounded. And I think it's helpful to get the word out.
So people don't, everybody's getting hit by inflation in their own household. And you look at our budget, it's probably, you had 7% inflation on. This is what you get here, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mrs.
Comment.
Pedersen.
Since we're going through pretty pictures, slide 27, I found really cute. I mean, it was nice that it was a visual because I thought it was fun. Come on, it broke it up. So you weren't looking just at pie graphs and numbers. But I think people don't understand that just because the property value goes up, that everything goes up with it, that the certified tax rate goes down. And I don't know if we need to explain, if there's a way to explain that besides this cute man with the arrow going down. But I think our community needs to understand that even though your property went up, they really need to know this sentence where it says the revenue received by the district remains the same. We don't, just because you have value in your home that's gone up, we don't always benefit from that. In fact, we usually don't, obviously, benefit too much from that kind of situation. So I appreciate your being able to put that in there. And it's true. You've made it something that's so complicated, much more understandable. And I wouldn't trade you jobs in a million years. You are very talented at what you do. And so thank you so much, you and your committee, your group of fine
thanks
folks
to
that
Dan.
help you with all those numbers.
Team effort. And everybody in the district, it's a team effort.
Of course it is.
But yeah.
Yes, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, Mrs. Nybar.
I forgot one other thing. Slide 105. I love that slide that shows the financial impact of full-time equivalents of contracted employees. I feel like that's a question we get sometimes from legislators. And it's the one where it shows, okay, and you have the statement about the primary activity of any public education institution is to educate the children. And then it just shows, hey, 64% of that is with direct instruction paid to our employees that deliver direct instruction. So my only thought on that was I'd love to have that towards the beginning of that budget book that you give to the legislators before their legislative session, because I really liked that.
Okay, are we ready to make some motions to approve these budgets? Okay, great.
Okay, so I got to get the right wording here. So I would like to make a motion. What's up on those? Oh, it's on the screen. To adopt the 2022-23 final budget for revenues and expenditures for each fund as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to that?
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the 22-23 final budget for revenues and expenses for each fund as presented. Any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we are ready for a second motion to adopt the budget for next year for 2023-2024.
I'll make that motion. I'd like to adopt the budget. I need to read through this, set the tax rate.
You got to read.
Yes.
I think we've got to read the whole
Yep.
thing.
Adopt the 2023-24 budget for revenues and expenditures for each fund as presented and adopt the tax rates as follows. Set the tax rate at the certified tax rate as calculated by the State Tax Commission. Authorize any revenue budget adjustments to reflect funds received from the certified tax rate. Set the state basic rate at the rate determined by USBE when received. Set the debt rate to generate sufficient revenue to pay debt service, but not to exceed 0.001565.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Pedersen. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the 2023-24 budget. I'm not going to read all that again as has been stated. Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Were we gonna have discussion to the?
No, I
motion?
didn't ask that. Is there any discussion to the motion?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. We will have discussion. Thank you, Mrs. Nybar.
I just, as we discussed this, when we're discussing levies and taxes and public hearings and things, I just want to make a point kind of to what our patron said, that none of us were in favor of raising. So, and I'm really happy about that and feel good about that as a representative of my constituents, that we're not doing that this year.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, then we'll go back to passing that motion. So all in favor of voting for the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, it looks like we are done with our agenda. And now we'll have staff comments, and first Superintendent Robbins.
No comments tonight, President.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Just congratulations to everybody for completing another great year here at Canyon School District, our 14th. I want to thank all the facilities people, employees, and union middle school employees. They did a big move this last week. They moved everything either into the new building or into the gym. We've cut the old building in half, and they've started the abatement on the east half of the old building, so they can start tearing that one down. They'll be doing that for the next 2 weeks. Then the wrecking ball, if you will come, and they'll start demolishing that so we can put in that parking lot. We'll then move to the west or the bottom half of Union and abate and tear that down. So moving ahead for the new Union, or our last project in quite some time. Well, in the foreseeable future. So moving ahead for our ribbon cutting on August 10th. And opening school with that. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with Mrs. Nybar.
Well, we just participated in graduation, which is one of my very favorite assignments as a board member, and I'm sure everyone feels the same way. It's amazing to see all these incredible kids in their caps and gowns. And my favorite thing as I'm handing diplomas is to ask them about their future plans. And it's inspiring. All of these kids and what they have figured out. I think there's a lot more of them that have it figured out than used to be the case. And it was just really exciting to be with them. As I was driving to the U, and I said this in my graduation speech, but I was listening to Harry Styles. I mentioned that to the kids because, they all like him. And I was listening to this song called Canyon Moon. And it starts out, got to see it to believe it. The sky never looked so blue. But I'm going to leave it because I always do. And I'm looking out at these kids that have just had this incredible community around them and had so much guidance through faculty and counselors and their principals, and they're just going out into the unknown. They have to leave it. But at the same time, you see that and you think of these kids as our future leaders. And I closed with this, but I said, when I look out at you, Harry's right. The sky never looks so blue, because I have every confidence in these kids and where they're headed. And so, it's just very special to be there and the energy in that room and all that is accomplished by the hands of our awesome faculty that we have. And I know it's difficult to be a high school principal. I mean, the multitasking every minute of every hour and fires you're putting out and all those programs that you're leading the charge with, it's incredible. But I was just thinking, as a board, I sure would love for us to, if we possibly consider
just writing a thank you letter to those high school principals for another successful year and all that they've done and what great experiences all these kids have. So I just wanted to close with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Oak.
I want to echo the excitement about graduation. It was a lot of fun. They're amazing kids, and it was wonderful to be able to share in that moment with those families. But the work of Canyons never stops. I mean, it was funny. I had a son that graduated this year, and as we were going to dinner with him, I got a call from Mayor Zoltansky of Sandy City saying that they were hosting a barbecue for all of their crossing guards in the city, and wondered if I wanted to come. And I just want to throw a shout out to her and to Sandy City in general. I really appreciated the opportunity that they gave our teachers to celebrate our teachers on last week's Real Salt Lake game. It was so much fun. The energy was great. I love seeing our teachers of the year down there on the field being recognized. And I really deeply appreciate the relationships that we have with our local municipalities. It's so important that we work with them collaboratively. I feel like Susan Edwards does such a great job with that. And just like we were talking about today, when we're changing things like bus routes, we need to make sure that we have a good relationship with the city to make sure that crossing guard situations and everything else is flowing well. It's astounding to me how our students, kind of like what Ms. Sniper was saying, they go through this experience and they have no idea all of the things that happen in the background for them to have a successful and safe experience during those 13 years of their education. And I, for one, am very grateful as a parent for all of the effort that goes into doing that for my own kids. I know there's a lot of things I'm aware of. I know there's a heck of a lot more that I'm not aware of. And I just am so grateful for all the seen and unseen actors that behind the scenes do that, whether it's a custodian or a lunch worker or secretary. In my case, we work very closely and often with a school nurse, and I'm so grateful for what they do for my son. So anyway, my shout out to everyone and all their hard work this year. I think principals, district administrators on down, there's been a lot of heavy lifting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Tingy.
Thank you. As has been mentioned, we had graduation since our last meeting, and I was able to attend a couple of those events. Brighton High School, and has been mentioned how wonderful it is, but I wanted to just also mention, since we talked earlier this evening about the CTA, I was able to attend their commencement, and I thought, it's so wonderful because those students are so excited. They know that they've accomplished something. They know they've learned and they've grown, and they always, as part of the program, they always share what some of those students, what they see in their future and what they want to accomplish after leaving the program. And it's just so heartwarming to see the confidence and the joy that they have because of the support that they have received through all the years here in Canyons District, from all the many wonderful people that are just committed to those students succeeding. And I want to just express my appreciation as well to all the efforts that have gone into it. And even though graduation is a culmination of their experience here in Canyons District, I think everyone that has helped support them to that end also recognizes that graduation is the beginning. It's the beginning of their future. It's the beginning of their abilities and opportunities to be contributing citizens and members of our communities. So I'm just very grateful to be a part of this process and this endeavor.
Thank you, Mrs. Pedersen.
Of course, we've all talked about graduation, but I think one of the things that was impressive to me, and this was my first board member graduation event, being able to attend those, and it was marvelous. It was just so exciting. And for me, it was very meaningful because I did have an opportunity to attend Jordan High's graduation and to be able to actually see students I taught way back in the beginning of the process come across at the end. You don't ever get to see that as an elementary teacher. You always start them off like a parent, you see them toddling and then they're running and then out the door they go. And you trust that the next people will love them as much as you did. And to be able to see that that trust has been sustained all along the way and that those kids did make it. It was just so much fun. That was just so rewarding for me to see that full circle of life, circle of education. So that was really exciting. I also think that this is a great time. I know a lot of parents think that teachers are just out on vacation, and yes, they take that opportunity if they can. They need to recharge and refresh. But this is also the only opportunity that we have to take in-service courses, and most of it is pretty much by choice. You're not forced by the district to take them, but the opportunities are there by different institutions, different groups, technological groups. You know, there's just a lot of places where you can go and increase your knowledge. And so not only are teachers being refreshed, but they're also being energized. This is the chance you have to regroup and then be ready to restart when school starts up again. And as a board member, I'm trying to do some of that too. I'm doing a lot of online coursework and trying to stay current with exactly what's going on, particularly in the AI area. I'm most intrigued by that, where it's going and what's happening. And there's just a lot of commotion going on right now. But I think I still am convinced that if we can do it properly, that this would, using AI in a positive way, would be able to take a lot of the prep off of our teachers' plates, and they can use it in a positive way. And I think in our case, we should be using it for our teachers and not worrying so much about getting it out to our students. Yes, they're going to be picking that up, but I think if we can find some ways to use that in a positive way, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also appreciative of the fact that now that I've seen the first full circle, I am just so glad that the legislature was able to give us the funding so that we could offer kindergarten for everyone. That is going to make such a big difference in the beginning. So talking about graduation being a beginning, there's also that beginning in the very, very beginning. And all of them, it's a hard lift for everyone. There's so much to do at so many different levels. And I appreciate everyone who's had a part in helping to pass along those students and helping them to be successful and reaching out for those that aren't. That's the thing I think I'm the proudest about in Canyons, is that we do look for everyone. We aren't worried about just one type of student, but we want to reach all. We want everyone to have that opportunity to have a wonderful foundation and be able to have choices when they graduate. So I'm feeling very grateful for being able to be on the school board, and I can see some great things happening in the future. And I appreciate my board members. They've been super supportive and accommodating and welcoming. And so has the staff and leadership. And every school I've gone into, everyone has been so fun to work with. And they've been very, very open to ideas, and they're willing to share. And I think the communication is opening up and becoming a little bit smoother, a little bit more authentic. And that's a good thing. I'd like to see that to continue, and maybe we can find ways to make it even better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to start by thanking Leon and Danny and your whole department for all your work. I mean, I'm sure so many hours in order to put that together, but it's really great. And I really do like reading it. I'll be honest. Anyway, it's really good. But yeah, but thank you for your work, and thank you also for being here. I know it's a late night. Then I just want to add my congratulations to all of our students who graduated. Just as my fellow board members have said, like it's one of the best events of the year. So my family went out of town Thursday morning, and my husband's like, "Well, you're not speaking, right?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, then you can go with us." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "No, I can't. I'm not missing that. Like, it's the best day of the year. I'm not missing it." So I left the next day and drove by myself. Anyway, But it was just wonderful to see the students and just to see some of the interactions with the administration. You know, some of those kids were like, I made it. And I could tell there was a lot more behind that. Like, I'm sure there was a story behind those, but there were several of those. And anyway, it's just wonderful. And I'm excited for our students and appreciate all the work of everyone to make that happen. So, and that's all I have. And I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.